or above the speed limit is when you're excessive. You're driving at 60 kilometres an hour in a 50 kilometre zone, that is excessive. There's a big difference between 50 and 60, and we've seen it in other SAPOL reports, the difference it can make to stopping time. And that is my concern, particularly when you've got elderly and children using Lockwood Road to cross.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up, so thank you very much, Mr Limberopoulos, for coming in and giving us your time and your concerns.
Thank you very much.
Now we have a second deputation, and that relates to Yeronga Avenue, McKenna Street, and the Recision Motion that's on the table for later this evening. And we have two people who are sharing their time. First one is Jackie Schuler. Oh, I'm not sure which order they wish to go in, but Jackie Schuler and Anna Maliod. And they are both present here tonight. And Matt has the microphone already. So you understood my instructions to the previous person. Is this Jackie or
my name's Anna McLeod.
You're Anna, okay.
So I'm actually speaking on behalf of Jackie.
Oh, so you're going to do the full 5 minutes? Or up to the full 5 minutes?
Yes,
okay, that's
right.
fine.
Yes,
good.
Yes.
And
so,
you understand there'll be a warning bell at 4, and then another bell at 5 minutes.
Yep, I understand that. Yeah. Okay.
You start whenever you're ready.
Okay, so good morning, Mayor and members of the Burnside Council. Thank you for having us here. So Jackie Schuler is the owner of 4 Spencer Street, Kensington Park, which is...
I should have asked you to just say what suburb you lived in.
I live in Kensington Gardens.
Thank you.
So that title that she has on her house, it provides a free and unrestricted right-of-way over the drainage reserve, which has the council is the subject of the council's rescission movement. So the way that property is set up is that there are 2 pieces of land with the unrestricted right-of-way in the middle, and the community land runs between the 2 pieces of land. At the moment, that land is just grassed, and and Jackie has been keeping that just as it is. There's nothing built on there. There are nothing placed on there. It's just a grassed piece of land, which they've been looking after. So, other than the fact that they have fenced their property, or the property was fenced when they bought it, there are no encroachments. On the land on the other side of the easement is their tennis court and their swimming pool. So the proposal to put up a fence to fence off the community land that runs between the 2 pieces of her property is obviously not ideal from her point of view. And just to give you an idea of what that will mean is the fencing will abut the veranda at the back of her house. So the veranda is about 6 metres from the back door and covers the back door and the whole of her sort of patio area out the back. So she will be closed in except for this whatever kind of amenity that the council is going to provide to allow her to exercise her right of way from one area of her property to the other. We're very concerned about Councillor Davies' motion to rescind the resolution and to reclassify the community land. But what we're most concerned about is the idea that you will build a fence through the land, dissecting it, and what that will mean, not just in terms of the value of her house and the amenity that she has in her house, but also who is going to use that laneway. Is it going to be who is going to be there at night? Is it going to be lit? All sorts of issues that safety issues and whatever that it raises. I think also that I'd like to look at the 2 surveys that Councillor Davies is relying on. So in one of those, I think it's called the statistically valid 2021 annual community survey. So that says if the people were asked if they supported the sale of community land to resolve residential encroachments. I think when people think of an encroachment, what they're thinking of is a piece of a building or a swimming pool or something like that. I don't think when you ask someone that question, they're envisaging just a lawned piece of land at the back of someone's house. So in using that to support her motion, I don't think that really is a very, that they've asked the right question, essentially. I don't think that the people who were asked had in mind what is actually the situation here. And also the other survey, which was the revocation of community title of McKenna Street and Yeronga Avenue drainage reserve land. So residents, so they were asked, did they not support the proposed revocation of the classified community land? Again, I don't think that people are being asked that question had any idea what that meant or the kind of situation that we are in. You might think in terms of when people think of community land, I think they're thinking of parks and things like that, which obviously have an amenity to the community. I don't think they're thinking of a corridor of land behind some people's houses that hasn't been used by the public for more than 40 years. So we would respectfully ask that when you make your decision about this, that you think about the circumstances that Jackie Schuller is in and what it will mean for her land and for the value of her property and for the amenity that she has in her house and the investment that she has in her house.
Thank you very much, Ms. McLeod. Is it meant to be McLeod? Yes. Okay, a C was left out of the name, so apologies for mispronouncing your name. On the form was incorrectly written. All right, so thank you, Ms. McLeod. And is there anyone who wishes to ask a question? Oh, sorry, we've got a number. First is Councillor Hughes.
I wasn't going to ask a question, but I was going to thank you for coming in this evening and also for speaking on behalf of Jackie. I know it's obviously
very emotionally about this, and she didn't feel that she could speak to the issue and make any sense while she feels that emotional about the issue.
So yeah, thank you for coming in this evening.
No problem.
Is there anyone else who wishes to ask, or anyone who wishes to ask a question? All right, then, well, thank you very much, Ms. McLeod, for coming in and doing your deputation.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just wanted to move a motion acknowledging an election win. The staff have the motion, if they could put it up on the notice board. It's to do with, thank you. I'll just make a small change. The motion reads that the City of Burnside acknowledges all those elected to the new federal government all those elected to the new federal government and in particular Ms. Louise Miller-Frost, MHR, if you could put the initials after her name, MHR. Okay. Former General Manager Community and Development at the City of Burnside on her election to the seat of Burnside. Boothby, I beg your pardon. Sorry, I've had so much input. I'll read it again. The City of Burnside acknowledges all those elected to the new federal government and in particular Ms Louise Miller-Frost, former General Manager, Community and Development of the City of Burnside, on her election to the seat of Boothby.
Yes, I'd like Parliament instead.
Okay, I'm happy to change government to Parliament.
And I seek a seconder.
That stands alone.
Councillor Lemon, you happy to second it? All right, thank you. Did you wish to speak on it at all, Jane? Sorry, Councillor Davey.
Other than to say she was an excellent general manager at the City of Burnside and wonderful to work with and with. And it's a wonderful achievement to be elected to the Federal Parliament. So our wishes go with her.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Lemon, did you wish to? Anyone else?
Super quick question. Yeah. Can we get some dates as to when she was a staff member here?
During my time, or some of our time, definitely. She was on last term. Yeah, early in the last term, I think it's correct. Yes, she was 3 or 4, I wasn't quite sure. Yeah. Can you... Councillor Piggott?
I do. Yeah, look, I'll support this motion. I worked with Louise and she was a excellent servant of the City of Burnside. Guessing 13 to 16, 17, something like that. And yeah, look, I think it is anyone who puts themselves up and for Federal Parliament and then gets in it, I think, you know, it's justifiably an outstanding effort and worthy of congratulations from the City of Burnside.
And she did go on to serve Catherine House and then St Vincent de Paul Society before deciding to put her hat in the ring for Federal Parliament. How are we going, Mr Spearman?
She finished in 2017. Well done, Grant. Well done. It was March 2017.
You're betting on 14? I know it was when we had the old chamber. That's right.
Through you, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Just on LinkedIn. So.
Better than going through council records, just go to LinkedIn.
General Manager, Feb 2012 to April 17.
Wow, 12 to 17. 5 years it was. But say it again because the microphone's now on. So is there anyone else who wishes to add to those comments? Otherwise, I will seek... Councillor Davey, you don't wish to speak again? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Yes, Councillor Turnbull.
When I speak leave for the meeting to move items 13.1, the rescission motion, and 11.5, report of Lockwood Road, up the agenda, so the people who did the deputations are aware and listening.
They have gone now.
They've gone?
Yes.
Oh.
They have gone, but still sought leave for the meeting, so I just need to see how the meeting feels about it. And if it were to be done, we would do it in the order of the deputations, that is the Lockwood Road one first and then the rescission motion. So, do we have a second for that, or indication? Councillor Davey? Those in favour? Those in favour of moving those forward? We have made it a general practice of recent times to move those forward irrespective of whether they're here in the chamber or not. So that was carried. So, I didn't ask for against, sorry. Anyone against? No? Carried. So we will now move to the Lockwood Road 11.5 and deal with that one first. And Councillor Turnbull, I believe you wish to speak on that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to. Sorry, I've just got to find it now. Sorry. The issue of the traffic speeds on the southern part of Lockwood Road. Oh, the alternate motion first, sorry. Yes. Too eager to get it over. Alternate motion is there. I'll just read that first, thank you. That council receives and notes the report.
That's not the one, that's the alternate motion.
Is that the wrong one?
That's it? No, that's not it. No. I'll just...
Need the one for people at home who can't see the screen.
No, that's Coach Road. We'll be there. That's it. That's the one.
That's the correct one now, Councillor
Thank
Turnbull.
you. Yes, that council receives and notes the report. That bit's the same. Number 2, as a first step, allocates $20,000 in the 2022-23 annual business plan and budget to install 2 fixed speed detecting variable message signs on Lockwood Road. Number 3, to investigate a long-term solution, allocates $40,000 in the 2022-23 annual business plan and budget for the engagement of a specialised consultant to assist in the feasibility, design and community consultation with respect to traffic calming options for Lockwood Road. Number 4, received a report on the results of the feasibility, design and consultation of the traffic calming options to enable council to consider estimated costs and determine whether it should proceed. Number 5, continues to request that SAPOL increases monitoring and enforcement of Lockwood Road. Number 6, advises the petition signatories of council's decision.
You need to carry on, Councillor Turnbull.
I will. This issue of traffic speeds on the southern part of Lockwood Road has been one that's been regularly raised by local residents throughout the term of this council and probably before that. We fully agree with the recommendation 1 of the report, that is the installation of 2 fixed speed detecting variable message signs in this section of Lockwood Road, 1 in each direction. I too see this as the next logical step in addressing this issue. There are already 2 of these installed in the Burnside ward and they seem to be very effective in limiting excess traffic speed. These are on the downhill slope of Heatherbank Terrace and on Penfold Road. And I often look at these and apologise for speeding, so they're very effective actually. The section of Lockwood Road in question is the southern section. It's between Greenhill Road and Stattenborough Street. There are currently no traffic calming measures on this section of Lockwood Road, whereas further north there are a number of roundabouts. Over the period 2015 to 2022, there have been 5 traffic speed surveys. The most recent was in March 2022. All these have measured 85 percentile speeds of 53 to 56 kilometres an hour, so consistently a significant percentage of the vehicles are exceeding the speed limit. This section of Lockwood Road contains a kindergarten, ECH homes, adjacent large primary school, church, a cafe and nearby sporting facilities. It also includes the pedestrian link between Hubby Court and Moorcroft Reserves. The proposed fixed speed detecting and variable message signs may well provide the solution. However, I'd like to include point 3, that is to engage a consultant in 2022 to 2023 to commence engagement with the residents around the affected length of Lockwood Road to determine the feasibility of various further options to enable council to consider estimated costs and whether it should proceed. This would be a way forward for us, for them, and should further traffic calming measures be required in the future, it would provide a budget for this planning and if it should be needed. The residents of this section not only have to cope with parking issues now, but more so with speeding issues. They feel it's gone on long enough. So I ask you to consider this, especially number 3. Thank you.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Dawes, your name is already here, so you assume you're seconding?
Yes, but I'm seconding, but I would reserve my right. Thank you.
I do not see any names here. Councillor Cornish.
A question of the administration, if I can. The $40,000, is that doable in next financial year?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's fair to say I do have a concern because we're adding it to a budget that hasn't already been adopted yet. But in short, if councillors are of mind, I'm sure that can be accommodated within the budget.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question for the administration. The traffic monitoring that's currently being done, will number 3 mean that we will start immediately gathering more data?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no. That resolution says to me that once the budget is adopted, then I'll have the funds to enable my team to look at the best way to handle this. But whilst we won't unnecessarily delay it, but at the very least it does mean I have to wait until 1 July.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Do you know, I remember when the Lockwood Road issue first came up a while ago, and the residents came and gave a deputation and spoke to council, and I was very sympathetic because when you've got a cut-through road between two arterials, people take it, and it is, in spite of what our deputy said tonight, it is what council would consider a wide road in the scheme of things. So, the fact that people speed down it would be terrible for those that live on that street, particularly if they're nipping off to get a pizza at 9:30 at night, because I suspect that's when people are speeding down that street. So I do have a great deal of sympathy for them. And I'm not sure how I'm going to go with this motion, because my issue with this is as follows. We've set our budget and we've gone out to community consultation. We've got savings targets in it, and before that's even come back to us for ratification, we're already knocking $40,000 out of that. And these are the sorts of things that really bother me, because we're doing this before we're ratifying the budget. And how many more times are we going to do this between now and September, October, when we have to stop doing it? And we just eat away at the very solid plans that we and the community have made, and it bothers me. $40,000 isn't a huge amount of money. This is a thing that probably does need to be done. We are likely to pass this tonight, but I'm hoping that this $40,000 now goes on a running sheet for something that council has resolved to do that actually eats into our savings targets and means that there are other things we won't be able to do. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but what I'm saying is we should plan ahead better.
Councillor Pickett.
A question, if I may, through you, Mayor. Do these fixed variable message signs, can we get the type, or is there types where they actually record the speed? Because actual information coming out of one of those would be gold, I would think. I mean, I understand the percentiles, but I mean, sorry, I shouldn't speak to it, I guess, but is there such a thing exists? Because if it did, I'd be up for getting one.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I can refer to Mr. Kent.
Through the Mayor, I'm advised that the ones that we do use do collect data. They're not as accurate as the monitoring systems that we put in place, and they can be fairly clunky, if that's... so the information that we do get out of it is somewhat accurate, but we do collect it.
Councillor Henschke.
I'd like to ask another question, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Now, the draft city master plan is out for consultation now. So how I'm just a bit confused as to, I mean, we've got many traffic issues through the city possibly, and how does, what was the intention behind the city master plan in terms of process to prioritise what traffic calming devices we invest in and where in the whole city. I had the impression that that's kind of the use of, one of the uses of the draft city master plan, that we can prioritise and then we can have this pipeline of prioritised investments. So then, yeah, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the City Master Plan is designed to be a holistic document where initially it's taking an overarching view of the city. So, for example, if I look at the 40-kilometre-hour proposals, which are broadly distributed across the city, it's not designed to deal with every singular nuance or particular situation we have, and there will always be a need for council to consider matters like this on a one-off basis. The plan doesn't have the ability to deal with these as such.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to support this motion as it stands. We've heard from the administration that they could incorporate the $40,000. If the Chamber looks at page 55 to 58 of the agenda in the finance reports, you can see all the variances that that come in through projects throughout the year. So we'll make that up without, I think, stealing from a particular project or an initiative, Councillor Lemon. The community have come to us with this issue. I think you have articulated it quite well, Councillor Lemon. It is a wide road and cars will go quite fast down there. I remember from my childhood it was actually quite a fun road to go down. I will certainly support the motion to investigate some long-term solution. I think it's needed, and this might pave the way for some of that city master planning as well. So I will support this motion, and I hope others in the chamber do as well.
Just before I move to Councillor Hughes, the CEO's got an extra information to provide to Councillor Henschke's question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to give Mr. Cant an opportunity just to add to that response I provided earlier.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Chris. The next step of the City Master Plan, once we get the initial consultation process through, will be to actually develop an action plan that accompanies the City Master Plan. And as part of that will be to develop priorities for suburbs that requires particular traffic management holistically across the suburbs, like Chris said, rather than just on a street-by-street basis. As we know, resolving issues just on a street-by-street basis can actually send a problem elsewhere, so that's something that we'd like to look holistically. Council members will actually have an opportunity to workshop those actions and the priorities of the City Master Plan prior to the final development and the presentation of that back to Council. So that will happen shortly.
Councillor Hughes.
I was just going to ask the two examples that Councillor Turnbull gave. I think the one on Heatherbank Terrace has the speed sign and then the little whatever you call it, S-bend. I'm just wondering, were they installed at the same time or was one installed before the other? So it's a rather obscure question, but just with Councillor Turnbull mentioning it, I was wondering whether they quite often would go hand in hand or if there's value in doing one before the other.
Through the Mayor. Through the Mayor. The sign, sorry, I didn't quite catch all that question, but the speed detection, the active one on Heatherbank Terrace, was installed following removal of the driveway link just further up the hill. There's also one of the Remember 50k speed limit signs in that area as well. And sorry, I missed the part of the question regarding.
I can respond to that one. That was installed as a traffic calming measure. However, following some resident concerns, the matter arrived back in this chamber and it was decided to remove it.
Councillor Jones.
I have a question, if I may. do we not employ staff who would be perfectly capable of coming up with options for traffic calming along Lockwood Road?
Through the Mayor, I believe we do, but I'll hand that to Mr Cant for a more fuller answer.
Through the Mayor, that is correct, and it's our team that have come up with all of these options within this report that's available. However, I'm just referring to the report. If you refer to the finance section, number 12, we've stated that our workload...
Page reference, please, Mr. Cant.
Page 64 of 125. Due to the current and forecast workloads of the administration, we would require additional consultant services should Council wish to proceed with this in the next financial year.
Thank you. Councillor Piggott, you're next.
Well, I was going to speak, but it begs the question, what would it cost internally if we did have the time? Interesting you might say that, Councillor Lehman. Perhaps a rhetorical.
Through my Mayor, the challenge with that is internal staff may do that piece of work, but then that other piece of work that doesn't get done will need to be outsourced.
I'll speak to it. I will support it. I think, Councillor Jones, it always bothers me, the sort of chunk of money. It sounds a lot of money, and I understand why we can't do it in-house, and there's probably advantages in doing it externally in terms of expertise. I do get that. But I don't know, I often rail against the contractor fees that I see go through this organisation, and I think that's where perhaps Councillor Jones was coming from. Having said that, I will support the motion, and I'm sure administration will do their best to not use all the 40,000. Because I think Councillor Lemon's right, this is a thing of timing. If only we had everything ready to go and we knew exactly what we were going to do by February every year. And I think actually we do a pretty good job of that. There is a bit of a log jam to try and make that happen. But these things do bob up from time to time. And I feel that the fixed speed detecting variable measured signs are a good thing, but I sort of feel they'll probably, take the lid off the ones that are sort of midstream speeding, possibly. They're not going to affect the top end. And the deputation referred to the fact that though it's a small percentage, you still got 200 cars potentially going at excessive speed through what is at places a narrow road, and certainly busy in terms of things actually happening on the road. So my sympathies are with the petition here, and I do feel we should do more than put the variable speeds up, and I do support getting a report as to what that should be for further consideration, so I will support it.
Councillor Dord?
Yes, I think it's time for me to speak. And this has been the result, this motion with administration headed by Alan Harvey and Councillor Turnbull, and the petitioners led by Nathan. So I'm hoping that you will support this today. But I just want to say a few more things. Look, I don't know what the solution is. I have a theory as to what the solution is, but I prefer we ask the experts. And that's why we've got point 3 in this particular motion. But what I do know is this is a secondary collector road like we have with Lockwood, and we have all these extra things around Lockwood in this part of the road. And it's been mentioned, we've got a kindergarten zone, we've got a primary school zone, we've got a new busy cafe on the corner of High Street, which is the same street as the Burnside Primary. We have an aged care facility and a popular church and art and craft centre. So with all those things within 200 to 300 metres, you can understand why Nathan and the petitioners are a little bit concerned. Plus we have a steep gradient in the south, which Councillor Cornish has used on occasions, leading into these areas. So something has to be done. Now also you would have picked up in the many tables we've got, we have an increase in vehicles per day of nearly 20% in the last 2 years. And it's quite clearly expressed in one of those tables. And that's along Lockwood Road. So there are increased traffic issues as well. Now, the two VMSs, and Councillor Toom and I have learnt what that means. It's a variable message sign. So that's another acronym we've learnt. And this is in point 2. Now, this will assist us in the short term. It may even assist in the long term. I don't know, but I think it will assist because I've seen the one on Heatherbank and I've seen the one in Penfold and Coach Road as well. I think Coach Road is probably more of an issue. But we do need a longer term solution guided by expert advice, and that's what point 3 is all about. So when the community comes forward with petitions and deputations, I do listen very carefully, as Councillor Pickett has also indicated. So I think they probably know a little bit more than what we do about what the issues are. So I hope you support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Firstly, I have a couple of questions of the administration. I'm a bit concerned to hear that there's been minimal policing in the area from SAPOL. I'm aware that we have speed cameras in Tusmore Avenue, Rochester Street, quite a few around the area, but I'm amazed that Lockwood Road doesn't feature. Is there a reason for this that you're aware of?
I think from Mr. Cant's response, no, we're not aware. We're not aware of any reasons why it's not.
Just my observations during COVID is there've been, as I drive around a lot of the suburbs, a lot less speed cameras around in this part of the woods than there were prior to COVID, because I think the police have had other duties that they've had to refer to during this period of time, you know, knocking on doors and checking on people to see if they're home. COVID is quite demanding alone. So I suspect that might be an issue. Sorry for interrupting. Please go on. Just following up there, thank you. And I understand that and understand SAPOL prioritising their resources. But there's big changes now, so there's opportunities at this time. So what have they told us when we, if I might ask, through you, what have they told us in terms of their ability to monitor? Because, I mean, this is just a standard situation, I would imagine, for speed cameras to be used to change behaviour.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through the Mayor, on regular occasions we send this information through to SAPOL and we request that they increase the presence, and that's similar to what the officer's recommendation said in this one as well. They don't provide us with any feedback or any reasons as why they do or do not attend. We can specifically request that, but whether they get back to us, that will be up to them.
Councillor Carver.
Thank you, Worship. Just to dig a little deeper on that last question, if I may, because I often see this sort of requesting SAPOL assistance and so forth. This comes up from time to time. So could we maybe just spell out for the Chamber what exactly happens when we request something from SAPOL? Do we write them a letter? Do they write back? Who do we write to? Do we write to the Police Minister? Do we write to the Commissioner? Can we get a bit more intel on exactly how that plays out?
I think they're just seeking an answer here.
Through the Mayor, when the team have those inquiries, that would be with the local branch and the SAPOL inquiries that we do there, and that's quite often a relationship you build up through that time. My understanding is that the officer has actually recently, that we had a relationship with, has actually recently moved on, so we'll have to re-engage and continue those relationships again. When there's actually a specific council resolution, the executive team will consider that when we go through this action. We'll determine who best to correspond with at that stage. So that's something that we'll discuss with an executive team and determine exactly who the best person is to contact formally with respect to this council resolution.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yes, Councillor David.
Just on that, would it be reasonable to make an amendment to number 5 to change it to, instead of continues to request, formally requests that SAPOL increase monitoring and enforcement of Lockwood Road?
Just the once? Is that enough?
Formally increases monitoring and enforcement of Lockwood Road.
Just the once?
I think in this case, Councillor Davey, you are referring specifically to this motion, and this motion deals with Lockwood Road. I certainly, like you, Councillor Lemon, can think of at least 2 areas in my old ward that are race tracks and speed tracks and are downhill slopes, top of Glenburn Road being one and another one Cooper Place. But I think this is an issue specifically relates to Lockwood Road. There are many other areas of Burnside that could do with it.
No, with respect, yes, sorry, I couldn't understand it because we're talking about Lockwood Road, and I appreciate fully that there's might be issues all around Burnside, but having just heard the answer that our staff have given, and that there is a change, there's obviously changed circumstances in SAPOL, there's changed circumstances locally. I wish to move that we amend 5 to read formally. Just formally requests that SAPOL increases monitoring and enforcement of speeding.
I don't think that needs an amendment. If the 2 mover and seconder are happy with it, we'll just change it to that, and they have nodded their acceptance of it, so we will just leave it with that word change, 2-word change.
I'm happy with that, thank you.
Now Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I've already spoken, but I'm concerned about formally, so I'll ask a question of administration. From my point of view, formally actually means that you send a letter, then you do it once. The motion as it stood previously was continues, which is you do it every few weeks. Would you read it that way? What that means is this is a one-off, whereas the motion as it stood is a continuation of. Do you see that way?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is the way I read it, that we would formally request initially. It does change the context, but I'm happy to take an interpretation that we formally request initially and continue. I've got no issues with interpreting that way.
I think the other thing is that it does say increase monitoring and enforcement. So there's a formal initial request, but it's asking for increased monitoring and enforcement, which I think extends beyond.
But you're only asking once. You're not asking every month. It's some bloke that you know down the street.
So, through you, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to make a commitment that the interpretation of this will be that we will write formally, so it's documented, and we have proof and evidence of that, but the team will continue to work with SAPOL on this matter.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question, with this report the consultant is doing, will they be also giving us data on the number of people, the pedestrians in this vicinity? Because we've heard from Councillor Dawes, I mean, it's obvious there's schools, etc., but will they be collecting data, or at least telling us that this has got a density of people, and so therefore there's vehicle risk interactions happening in a section that's higher than it should be?
Through Madam Mayor, I think it's a bit early to start talking about what the consultant will or won't do. I think the spirit of what we want to achieve there is up there. Once the consultant's engaged, I'll then be able to provide more information. But at this point in time, it's a bit difficult to assume which way the consultant will handle the matter.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just speak to the motion. I'll support it, but I'm very interested in knowing, say, when we do our big picture city master plan, where the people are in our community, where there is a risk of them interacting with vehicles, and that can be used to prioritise and put a spotlight on such risks, which we've heard from the residents, thankfully, tonight and many other times. So thank you, councillors.
Councillor Davey.
Sorry, just another question. How many of those mobile speed sign devices do we have? And because this would mean acquiring a couple more, as I mentioned.
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer the second part to Mr. Cant, but this motion is actually talking about installing two permanently installed speed measuring detecting variable message signs, so they won't be relocatable. They are permanently installed in that location. Does that answer your question, Councillor Davey? Or I can... Okay, so I'll refer... Yeah. certainly. So through Madam Mayor, if I can refer the second part to Mr. Cairn.
Through the Mayor, I'm advised we have 3 fixed and 2 trailer mounted.
Right, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Otherwise I shall go back to Councillor Turnbull.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your concerns, and hopefully you will vote for this. Having sat at that cafe several times and watched the cars gunning down the southern slope of Lockwood Road through the intersection, off they go, I really do feel for the people who live along there. I've really only got the 3 points to say. The speeding has become an issue and has been for years. This motion allows for a way forward if the VMSs are not effective. Hopefully they will be. It does allow for some community consultation if needed. And really, the residents need to see that the council is putting options into place to help them. Thank you. I hope you vote for this motion.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Also note that probably another symptom, of course, is also the movement of the Year 7s to Norwood High School, because that will have also increased the amount of traffic scooting through from Green Hill Road through to the Parade and Kensington Road because of the change in that. And that's an extra few hundred students this year and will continue to be in future years. So I'm sure that will be taken into account when the feasibility study is done. Now we move to the rescission motion, and that is Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll read this out and then I'll ask that my time commence. My motion is that Council rescinds Resolution C122422-13134, and that reads that Council notes the outcome of public consultation in Attachment B of Report Number 0722. 2. Submits an application to the Minister for Local Government seeking to revoke the community land classification of McKenna Street Reserve and Yeronga Avenue Drainage Reserve, Kensington Park, described in Certificate of Titles, Volume 5669, Folio 942, and Volume 1647, Folio 172, located between the western boundary of 2 Spencer Street and the eastern boundary of 57 Yeronga Avenue, Kensington Park. 3. Acknowledges that any resulting sale will be subject to a drainage easement being granted to Council over the entirety of the land, should the community land revocation process be successful. And 4. Contacts the respondents of the public consultation process and advises them of the outcome of Council's determination. I'll speak now to this. I've moved this motion tonight because I believe the decision of Council on the 12th of April was unsafe. I think it raises negative issues associated with governance and prudential management, and that the duly considered recommendation made by the Burnside administration in the report to Council should have been followed. This is an opportunity for the resolution to be rescinded for the following reasons. There is no question but that we have to regularise the encroachments which alienate community land. We have to deal with these in some way. But I believe Council failed to give due consideration to and take account of the results of the specific community consultation process in relation to the proposed revocation of these, the title of McKenna Street and Yeronga Avenue Drainage Reserve land, totalling approximately 639 metres squared, which has been encroached upon and which was undertaken under Council's community engagement policy from the 1st of February to the 1st of March 2022. A majority of 59% of the responses received from City of Burnside residents and ratepayers did not support the proposed revocation of the classified community land. There was failure by Council, I think, to give due consideration to and take account of the results of the City of Burnside's statistically valid 2021 annual community survey, which is a sample of 850 Burnside residents and was undertaken between the 25th of November and the 17th of December 2021. The objective of this survey is, as the only fully representative survey conducted in the city, to understand the community's opinions on strategic topics, and to answer strategic questions requested by the council member body. This survey specifically included a list of questions, including one that asked the community if they supported the sale of community land to resolve residential encroachments. 51% of those surveyed did not support the sale of the community land for this reason, 28% were unsure, and only 18% supported sale of council land encroached upon. There were no examples of encroachment on community land provided in the survey. This survey was presented to council members at a workshop in April and has been placed on council's website. Failure to follow the recommendations of the administration in the report to council on 12th of April, which noted the outcome of the public consultation, advised council not to revoke community title and to seek removal of encroachments that impede community thoroughfare of this land. I note the particular circumstances of the title at number 4 Spencer Street, but we need to continue to negotiate mutually satisfying outcome to this situation, as council has done in relation to other challenging encroachments in Burnside, such as Matilda Lane in Eastwood. I believe there are reputational risks to council if our decision-making appears inconsistent with previous decisions that council has made regarding our encroachments. I ask for your support for this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. I seek a seconder. Councillor Jones. You're reserving your right. Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, I have a question first for administration. And again, it was raised by the deputy tonight, and I think it was raised back on the 12th of April. Do we have the authority to do the survey again? Because what I'm hearing again is that people misunderstood the survey and perhaps we didn't word it appropriately. But I don't know if we can redo the survey and get the same results. Can administration answer that question?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through the Mayor, yes, Council can instruct us to proceed in any manner it sees fit. So if it wishes to redo the survey and ask a particular question, it would have to resolve to do so and instruct us to do that. I'm not sure if you were looking for the same result or a different result, but you could be, you'd have to be careful that you're not seen to be fishing for a result. It would have to be a genuine consultation process.
Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. I speak against this rescission motion. The decision from April 12 is not unsafe. That's absolutely not true. It's not unsafe. It was a decision taken in the normal way, following debate, and there'd be no reason why this decision wouldn't stand up. If you look at the reasons brought on, one is the community survey. It was interesting the deputation tonight made a good point about the fact I'm being asked over the phone, one of the 800 people, are you in favour of selling council community land to get rid of an encroachment? Well, if you'd rang me in 2009, before I was on council, I'd have said no. Absolutely, put like that, that doesn't sound like a good idea at all. However, I've sat through many debates where the issues are always different. They have always got something going on. Sometimes it's the right thing to do, sometimes it's not. And this one has got a number of reasons why it's not the right thing to do to take a survey of 800 people that don't know the facts of the case. So I don't think they get a seat at the table. We were given a recommendation in the 12th of April from administration based on the survey done around our request for a survey, and the number of people I think that answered that survey were 27 people. 15 of them lived in the catchment. In actual fact, more in favour of it than were against, 8 to 7. You know, the numbers were line ball. Administration needed to take a call. one way or the other, and they decided not to go with the majority overall. But equally, they could have gone with the majority of the people who live within the catchment. And when you look at some of the reasons why they gave, I think that could have been a good option. They didn't, and that was fair enough. But council, when we considered it, debated it, we felt that wasn't appropriate and went the other way, which we are entitled to do. So I think, and in terms of whether it's the right thing to do, actually we're not selling land with that motion on the 12th of April. We've sold nothing. We haven't decided to sell anything. What we've done is set in motion a process to turn the community land into operational land. We can keep that forever. We don't have to sell it. So I don't think it's unsafe on the fact that 800 people have said, or the majority of, that we shouldn't sell community land, because this motion actually doesn't do that. The debate there, if you want to make it, is for when we get it back and we are in a position to, if council then considers it, that's when that debate's to be made. So to make a claim that that decision was unsafe is not right. To make a claim that decision was wrong is not right either. This is a piece of land that we haven't had for over 40 years, or we've had for over 40 years and never used for 40 years. It doesn't contain, I can't remember how many exotic species of flora and fauna that we discussed the first time. And it is sensible, actually, not to open it up as a public walkway. So I think we should not rescind that motion.
Anyone else who wishes to speak? I have no one on the screen. Councillor Davey? Sorry, Councillor Turnbull actually beat you to it. So Councillor Turnbull, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor Davey.
Right, thank you, Mayor. I applaud Councillor Davey for this rescission motion. The council meeting on 12th of April left me astounded that this council could be so inconsistent over the selling of council land. That is the land owned by the ratepayers. I remembered Matilda Lane at Eastwood. Removal of the encroachments such as carports and sheds, etc. We voted for that to happen, and subsequently the land was restored for the community. In this case, there are no major impediments to remove, but the land still needs to be returned to community use. People can walk through there, through that walkway. It doesn't need to be sold off so that one resident can buy the land to increase his land size and subsequent to subdividing. The open space policy doesn't go for that. It says a provision that requires to purchase open space from the council, from the City of Burnside, will only be provided to council for consideration when the request is not being made to support a subdivision proposal. Just wondering what happened here, the word not being not. The decision made at the council meeting to sell the land to residents of those 2 and 4 Spencer Street and 57 Yeronga Avenue surely sets a precedence for other landowners in our council area to apply to buy more as well. The recommendation at the last meeting was not to sell the land, that word not again. If this rescission motion is passed, I would trust the council to work closely with the residents, lay their fences, gates and right-of-way, etc. But it's only fair for the many ratepayers of Burnside to have access to this land, their land, if they want to use it. So I will support this rescission motion.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, but names have disappeared off here and 3 others are before me. I went to turn it on and yeah, I'm still confused.
Unfortunately, I've got Councillor Jones about to speak, who will ask questions, then Councillor Dawes, then Councillor Hughes, and then Councillor... What, you just disappeared. You were there after Councillor Hughes, but now you've gone completely.
Once the screen, then you're in.
Perhaps someone else will ask the question, the same question. Councillor Jones, Sorry, Councillor Jones, you're next.
Look, Councillor Turnbull has pretty much made the speech I was going to make, so thank you, Councillor, for that. The key for me is the open space policy, is that we were approached by number 2 Spencer Street, who said, can we buy this land so that we can subdivide? And we agreed in January of this year that we were changing the policy to say, no, not interested. We're not interested in selling open space so people can subdivide. We've just agreed a city master plan where we're trying to increase block sizes to prevent subdivision because we don't like what it's doing to our council. So I just find it passing strange that we would want to revoke the community land status, which is inevitably going to be to sell it. It's not that we want this land as operational land. I mean, I'm sorry, Councillor Piggott, but I think this is a path to sale, frankly. And unfortunately, I can't support it. Yeah, I agree we need to deal sensitively with the neighbours who are affected, and council staff have shown that they can do that because they've done it on Matilda Lane. And that had been encroached on for 70 years. So it can be done. The council have shown they've actually did pretty good. I've heard no complaints from the Matilda Lane residents. So I think this is a good motion, and I would urge you to support it.
Councillor Dawes?
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow in the same mode, and I've got my speech here from the 12th of April, so I'll just repeat it. Add a bit more. We had 27 responses, as Councillor Pickett said, and around 60% were not in favour. Moorcroft Reserve, again the same thing. I had 25 responses there and 60% in favour, and we agree as a council 9-3. Then we had Haslam Oval, and this was unanimous. A meeting ago, I can't remember, that we would not do that. And Matilda Lane, as was already been mentioned, that was unanimous. So I can't see the difference here. Even though I have queried whether we're going to get any benefit or value of returning this to community land, I have to listen to the residents. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
I actually wasn't going to speak because I thought Councillor Piggott covered off on all of the issues quite well, but there have been a few things that have been brought up this evening by Councillor Turnbull that I think are just worth addressing. That she mentions that we're inconsistent in our decision making, and I think one of the issues that we have with this encroachment issue is that every single site and every single situation is different. Matilda Lane, landlocked block, completely different. Moorcroft, edge of a creek, little old lady, that was in Councillor Turnbull's ward and Councillor Dawes' ward, and they actually agreed with selling that land. So every single thing that comes up will have different quirky things. And for me, as I've mentioned before at the last meeting, it's really number 4, the block at number 4, that does this. And we would be creating just the most bizarre situation to any resident. And although, as I said at the last meeting, the onus is on you to understand your title, when you purchase a block, and this situation has been in play for many, many years, you know, there would be no grounds for that resident to think there wouldn't be some sort of informal agreement with council. And I think just want to point out the mention about the open space policy. This actually came to the table before that was in the policy. So I think this has kind of been ongoing, and we've made decisions about progressing this, going to consultation, and then we've made that change to the policy. And similarly, I think that's about the selling of open space, but I think we have to look at the land and how it's used and the value that it's going to add back to our community. Now, Councillor Davies also mentioned about 51% of our residents don't think that we should sell it, and I think the point that Councillor Piggott made about the context around that is really important. 56% of our residents actually want a skate park. We haven't done anything about that for 4 years. So I think, you know, those questions that we ask in the survey, yes, that should guide us in how we make decisions. But I think this is really line ball in terms of the outcome of that survey, but also the outcome of the survey that we did about this specific issue. And I think as an elected body, I'm comfortable that we went through a process to get to that point. And I think, you know, it's not just the immediate residents, it is the whole resident that we need to consider. But I think that block number 4 for me really, it's what differentiates all of these decisions. And I don't think we can look at it and have a blanket approach to decision making on these types of things.
Councillor Cornish.
Just a question, if I can, to the administration, and they might not be able to answer it because I'm just noticing that planning people aren't here. It's in relation to the swimming pool. I had a thought reading the agenda the other day. The question is whether or not blocking off the access with 2 fences and 2 gates from the house to the swimming pool, is there some sort of effective oversight that parents or people have to have on use of their swimming pool? in terms of making sure that no one's actually drowning. I'm just concerned that we're providing ourselves a bit of an issue there, that they might come back to us if an incident does happen in this swimming pool, and because we've insisted that they put 2 fences and 2 gates in between, well actually 3 because the pool would be fenced as well. But I just wondered if that would cause an issue planning-wise or any of the regulations.
I won't say that I'm absolutely right about this, but the rules changed on swimming pools. And it used to be the property needed to be fenced if it was in a backyard. But now the swimming pool, regardless, must be fenced alone, right? Separate from backyard fences, side fences, etc. Well, would you let your children swim in a swimming pool and you're in the other property across a laneway? Anyway, do you have any better advice than that, please, Mr.
Through the Mayor, I don't believe there is anything under planning legislation that requires lines of sight. We just need to ensure that the pool has appropriate safety fencing. That would be it.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think when it comes to this issue, I think some of us need to take a bit of a chill pill sometimes. I'm not really getting where this is coming from, but you know, we talk about community all the time. We talk about, you know, the greatest good for the greatest number and so forth. We talk about those sorts of things. What can we do that has the biggest impact to the most benefit to benefit the most people and so forth? And when it comes to these sorts of things, and my view is always very consistent when it comes to selling, or when talking about little bits of community land, we've got to look at what really is the value of this land to the community. If we open it up, let's be honest and frank with ourselves, if we open it up, who really is going to benefit? Who really is going to walk down and enjoy it? There's going to be no one. Hardly anyone goes to this little park on the corner, let alone this sticky little laneway. So let's just be real about what we can actually achieve for the community. And what we could achieve for the community is not destroying people's lives, not cutting up people's backyards, not causing pain and hurt. Look, I don't know about you, but I'm not cool with those things. What I am cool is working out a solution that benefits everybody. And a solution that benefits everybody is basically not voting for this motion, getting rid of the community land, giving people back their backyards that they've known to enjoy and love over the last 50 years, and using those funds to invest in our open space policy to buy a block of land that would benefit everyone. Just the last couple of council meetings, we talk about expanding the Ashley Avenue Reserve. Now, that is a classic example of where we can get rid of useless community land, benefit the street, and benefit another community altogether. Now, that is the maximum value, the greatest good for the greatest number. So sometimes we just need to get a little less hung up on this data and 51 and 49 and so forth. We need to look beyond the spreadsheet a little bit and just apply a little bit of common sense, okay? We don't need it. We're going to hurt people, and if we return it or give it to these residents, they'll enjoy it. Nothing will really change. The trees will still be there. The shrubs will still be there. From an aerial shot, that'll be the same. So from an environmental perspective, we're no better or worse off. But we can use those funds, those vital funds, to invest in something that has the greatest good for the greatest number. So let's just chill out, okay? Take a moment to reflect on what we're talking about here. It's not the end of the world.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm a bit concerned about there's been a bit of apparent vilification of our community consultation processes. And I just wanted some comment. I mean, I believe that our policies and the work, and I know it's because so much of it seems to go on in my ward, community consultation. I know the work and effort that's put in by our staff to develop community consultation. I just want to know, do we comply with all our requirements under Section 50 of the Local Government Act, which requires us to adopt a public consultation policy and implement it?
Through the Mayor, yes we do.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. And we can do community consultation and make an opposing decision if we so choose. We're the board. We can do that, and we have. I'm sure we have. I can't think of an instance, but I'm sure we have. I won't support this motion. I think it's ridiculous. You look at this, hold it up, we've all got it, put on our desks earlier on, and Councillor Jones calls that open space. That blue bit is open space. The only reason that Burnside Council owns that piece of space is drainage. And now you're calling it open space and you're opening it for the community to walk their dogs. What a nonsense. No one's going to do that. We own this piece of land because it's a drain. That's the only reason we've got it. We made the right decision last time. We made the right decision for the people that actually live in and around that drainage area. I won't give it the benefit of calling it open space. It's a drainage area. It's not a park to frolic in. It's a drainage area. We made the right decision. And we made the right decision not in spite of the community telling us different. It was a 50-50 line ball. And one of the people that we actually took into account was a non-Burnside resident. 27 people. Half of the ones that live there said, do it. I won't be supporting this because this actually is a really silly thing to do, to talk about a drain as open space makes us seem, as a council, we are ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous to actually get so precious about a drain when we really should be getting precious about our parks and our trees and our verges, not our drains. I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Jones, you have a question?
I have a question. It would be open to us to lease this land back to property owners, perhaps, which would stop any subdivision?
Through to Mayor, I think Mr. Cairns explored this one. I'll just refer it to him.
Through the Mayor, the leasing is an option, and that was provided in previous reports to Council as an option. I'll ask Ms Kennedy just to expand on that, if she can. To answer your question is yes, you can lease it back to them, yes.
Councillor Henschke, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The resident who spoke tonight was speaking about the impact of a fence, potential council fence on their back veranda. Can I clarify, is a fence required or is this just an idea that there could be a fence? Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, were council to go ahead with reclaiming that parcel of land, yes, a fence would be required. Well, certainly from the residents' perspective, because that would become accessible to the public. So the public would have access to their rear yard. It would be in council's interest to fence it with a fence that is uniform, similar to our approach we've taken at Matilda Lane. It would be a standard 1.8 metre fence of a uniform colour. So I believe that a fence would be required in that location. One, for council to be consistent with this process, and two, for the safety of the resident.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I have no one on my screen, so I will go back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make an observation in relation to voting, as this has become an issue. As we've just seen in a federal parliamentary election, 51% can get you over the line, or even just a bit less, can get you over the line in a parliamentary election. So if we're talking about, numbers in community consultation, I think ours is as valid as it gets. And further to say, sometimes decisions that council has to make are difficult, and this is a difficult decision for all the reasons that have been outlined tonight. But there's no question we have to regularise these encroachments, and we're talking about and debating the way we do this. They alienate community land, and the situation is challenging in relation to number 4 Spencer Street, which covers 2 titles, one for a home and the other across a council drainage reserve for a tennis court and a swimming pool, with a right-of-way across council land. These are historic, but I believe if this rescission motion is approved, I believe we can delegate to our CEO and the staff a negotiating capacity to work out a decent solution to manage the area, resolve the encroachments, and I mean, we had 2 lots of community feedback. It's incumbent upon us to listen to our community. We went out, we've asked them, we've made decisions in council to ask them what they think on 2 occasions, which specifically relate to this issue. And it's incumbent upon us, it's our duty to listen to our community. We can't ignore the 2 pieces of community engagement, which are very recent in 2021 and 2022. So we need to continue negotiations with the affected homeowners. And has been indicated by the administration, there are options for removal of the encroachments and how their right-of-way in respect of 4 Spencer Street can be maintained. So I don't think it's our role to, at this stage, apply to the Minister to change the status of community-owned land to that of operational land, because it's just tantamount to us saying, yes, we've lost our community title over it and control, and we're handing it over to for anything to be done in terms of its status. I think one of the first things the Minister might ask is, what is the community consultation and what process has been undertaken and what is the feedback from your community? And I doubt that he would approve it on that basis. I think this community land must remain in community ownership, and any idea that our meagre open space fund of 160k would benefit is not tenable, as we're not able to increase our open space at all at this stage. So I don't think that's a relevant argument to have. So please support this rescission motion. Thank you.
I will put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Here we go again. Actually going to reverse my decision. Yes, you may well moan. I've been and had another really serious look at the area again on the weekend, and it reminded me that more than 40 years ago, I used to use that reserve on my bike and walk because we grew up in Yeronga Avenue. And although we can't return things back to the way they were, I think we seriously need to consider the precedent and the principle here. I am fearful of the potential of not us maybe as a council deciding to sell that land if it became operational rather than community, but another council who come after us might choose to do so. And for that reason, I would like to see more negotiation with those residents, and therefore I will support this motion. The motion is carried. Yes, Councillor Davey.
I now have another motion to follow that one.
You want to call a division? Is that too late? Okay. All right. Okay, call the division. Everyone please stand who supported it. So it's Councillor Henschke, Davey, Turnbull, Dawes, Jones and Mayor Monceau. Those against, Councillors Cornish, Hughes, Piggott, Lemon, Carbone. Thank you, and the motion was carried. Now your
Thank you, Mayor. I have a replacement motion.
Is it as it was stated?
It's just slightly amended from it what I originally put up. It is that council notes the outcome of public consultation.
Instead of reading the whole thing, just read out the parts that have amended, because people at home should have the agenda as it was. So if you just read out the ones that you've changed, please.
I'd just like to get it in my mind. So the council notes the outcome of public consultation and does not proceed with the request to revoke community land classification of portions of McKenna Street Reserve and Yeronga Avenue Drainage Reserve, Kensington Park. 2, advises the owners of 2 and 4 Spencer Street, 55 and 57 Yeronga Avenue, Kensington Park accordingly. 3, authorises the Chief Executive Officer to exercise his powers under Section 254 of the Local Government Act, if necessary, to A, commence negotiations for the removal of the encroachments that impede community thoroughfare on a mutually agreed basis with affected homeowners, and B, reinstate the portions of McKenna Street Reserve and Yeronga Avenue Drainage Reserve, Kensington Park as accessible community land, and contact the respondents of the community consultation and advise them, there's an S removed, of the outcome of council's determination. So hopefully, I mean, we've discussed it all. Hopefully I don't need to go through all of the reasons why. I've added number 55 Yeronga Avenue because that had been left off, and I think we need to be complete and advise all of the residents. And I think we now have to leave it to our very capable CEO and his staff to negotiate, to work with the residents, talk to them about how we can remove the encroachments and work with the homeowners to satisfy them as to a mutually agreed solution. And we know there's one property where that is a challenge, number 4 Spencer Street. They did move in, buy that property only 11 years ago, knowing that this title existed. It's a very high value property. I'm sure, I mean, I went around there today. I know they don't welcome that they will have to change their back garden, but we have to make the decision that is best for our community and for our responsibilities as elected members on council under the Local Government Act. So I think this aligns with this, and it also aligns with all the work that our administration have done in the report they presented to us and that we considered originally on the 12th of April and preceding that. And it also acknowledges the community consultation, which we are duty bound to listen to. So hopefully you will support this motion tonight. I won't say any more. Thank you.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Turnbull, do you wish to speak now or hold until later? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Piggott.
Could I propose an amendment?
Do so.
I'd like to 1 and 2 stay as they are. 3 through to A, commence negotiations for the removal of encroachments that impede community thoroughfare on a mutually agreed basis with affected homeowners. Full stop for 3. I'd like to remove B, 3B, and I would like instead to put number 4. Provide a... Let them catch up, which gives me some thinking time. So a new 4. Provide, I don't know whether you might have to help me with the words once I've said it, but provide a report back to us effectively, discussing the options of the appropriate treatment of the areas going forward. And 5 stays.
Once you've got that sorted out, I do need to know whether that falls within the limits of an amendment or it's different enough to be another motion. So I'll seek that clarification. As soon as you've got the wording sorted out.
Oh, don't you? We might need that in a minute if they knock me back.
Oh, but the report comes across.
Yeah.
No, I think that's
It's just another step.
Yeah. Through Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, so you're seeking to put a hold point in there, Councillor Piggott, before
No,
progressing?
I'm not. I'm seeking to place another step in there as opposed to the game's been played and won and lost in regard to whether we keep it. Understand that.
Yeah.
So the next step is what we do with it. I understand talking to the neighbours in regard to encroachments. I'm still not convinced whether we should open that drainage area that cuts across a right-of-way to a swimming pool. So I just feel it's appropriate rather than set you off to sort out the encroachments and open the drainage area. I prefer we set you off to commence negotiations and see how that all pans out, and then come back to us with what is the best thing to do with that piece of land that has sat there without community access for 40 years. That's what I'm seeking to do. So I'm not looking to impede it, but I am looking to place another step before we take the fence off at each end and let the mayor ride her bike across the right-of-way to someone's swimming pool.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Not anymore.
Thank you for that clarification, because I needed to understand that to give you my advice. It's actually an alternate motion, because you are materially changing the approach that had been put forward by Councillor Davey. So it will need to be considered as an alternate motion.
I might add
It was about creek. Understand. I did hear from my colleague that she was okay with it, so perhaps she'd like to change it anyway.
Sorry, can there be a compromise on that? A progress report as opposed to bringing back a report? Full report?
Can I?
I need to find out from Ms Matthews.
No, through Madam Mayor, the challenge we've got is that the motion that's before us prior to the suggested amendment talks about reopening that lane for community access, so very clearly. The suggested amendment, I'm suggesting as an alternate, is saying that potentially council may decide not to open it up. There is a fundamental difference there, Councillor Davey. I think would materially change what you're trying to achieve.
What I'm doing is handing over to you guys the negotiations and ability to work it all through.
Yeah, but if I may, but you're also being very clear about the fact that it's become accessible to the public through there. What's been proposed is that may not be the ultimate outcome. Is that a fair statement? Yep. So it's an alternate motion.
Look, I absolutely accept the decision. Rather than the amendment then, the alternative is not to vote this motion up. And I think the reason we shouldn't, like I say, I think that, we've gone backwards and forwards on the survey, et cetera, will we, won't we? The council has decided that we won't be seeking changing the status of the land, and I think that's done. That's fine. So what happens next? We go and talk to the neighbours. All four of them have got sort of different issues and different positions, and all looking to subdivide. Someone just looking to go and play tennis and swim in the pool. And so So what I feel we should do next is not, as this motion requires, go out and say, look, get back off our land, sort yourself out, put a fence up, and then take the gate off either end. That's what this motion does. Now, I don't think it's quite as straightforward as that. The Chief Executive is right. I still feel that it's not right to open that laneway up. I'm comfortable that we keep the land, we keep it as community land, but I'm not comfortable to have it open to public access for a couple of reasons. One is I don't think it'll be particularly well patronised. I think it will be a security risk after dark, and it does give us this complication of the right-of-way between one of our residents and their swimming pool. So I think there's all sorts of reasons why it's still not necessarily the right thing to do. And in fact, if no one had actually put their hand up and asked about it, that's the way it would be today, and we wouldn't be changing it. There wouldn't be a motion here to say, let's open that great piece of public land, because it's not a great piece of public land. So I do think the right thing to do actually is to go away and do a bit more work on what happens now. The decision's been made, stays as community land, fine. But I do think the appropriate thing is to go away and work out what should happen next, not throw the gates open immediately, because I don't think we know enough of the next step. And so I feel it would be appropriate to vote this motion down, because what it does do, again, as the CEO stated, instructs him to go and get that accessible as soon as possible.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to clarify the interpretation of item 3, where we've authorised the Chief Executive Officer to exercise his powers, and it says, if necessary, to A and B, and in B it says, if necessary, he will reinstate the reserve, etc., as accessible community land. Is that, we have a number of policies about how community land will be reinstated, I presume. So we don't really need to know a report about how that's going to get done anyway, do we? Because we've got environment policies, vegetation policies, that's what these policies will be used by the administration to get on with that very job. Is that correct?
Just give me a couple of minutes, Madam Mayor. Just need to seek a bit of clarification. Through Madam Mayor, I must admit I missed the word if necessary. That doesn't give me enough clarity. I do need greater direction. So if you wish me to proceed with A and B, the word if necessary is not required. If you want to give me very clear direction.
I'm happy to remove that, because I did run it past you before, Councillor. Sorry, I'm happy to remove that if that does create a barrier. But as I said, I did run it past you. I mean, I know it was this afternoon.
No, that's
but
right.
In terms of the intent of the discussion and the debate we've had, if that constrains you, I'm happy to remove that and hope that my seconder will as well.
If I may, and I apologise, I did miss the if necessary. The problem with that is it leaves ambiguity.
Yeah. Leaves it for you.
Well, that's right. And
without guidance from council.
But given the contention, I think it's important to be clear.
Councillor Pickett's first.
So I was just going to enter into the English debate, to be honest. I may have misunderstood, but I feel that if necessary related to you might not need the Section 254 of the Local Government Act. I felt the other two were pretty clear cut. Doesn't help my argument, but always like to engage in a bit of academic exercise on English language.
Councillor Davey.
I just wanted to clarify, in accordance with Councillor Henschke's query, that the CEO and his administration have the powers, with all of the legislation and the policies and procedures that we have, to proceed with this task that we want him to do.
Councillor Cornish.
Just a question of the administration. Can the owners, specifically probably number 4, take us to court over this decision?
The short answer is they could choose to take us to court regardless of... sorry, the short answer is yes, they may choose to, but we would be on legally sound ground in terms of our approach because we are complying with all the aspects of the relevant acts.
And a follow-up question, do we know how many other properties between here and Kensington Gardens Reserve are in the exact same boat that we'll be asking them to remove their encroachments and fencing around them for public space? My count is around 30. Goes through Mild Avenue, a couple of houses there, at least 4 or 5.
So, are you suggesting that would automatically happen?
Oh no, I'll be bringing. I'll be bringing a. You know, if this gets up, let's do a run on getting all encroachments off our land over Stonyfell Creek. Absolutely.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Cornish has done a little bit more homework than perhaps I have before this meeting with respect to this issue. There is undoubtedly some repeat issues of this further down the creek system. However, several will have encroachment, thank you, easements on it rather than encroachments. We would have to take that notice to do a little bit of work on that, which would be quite resource intensive as well.
Councillor Jones.
I think Councillor Piggott's proposal has merit. So I think I want to see his motion because I think there are two obvious, rather than just opening it up, there's the question of leasing it, which would seem to be sensible, which prevents the subdivision, but we can still come to we might be able to come to an acceptable outcome with the neighbours. The other thing is, I'm going to sound like a broken record, if we put the creek back, no one would be walking down there because there'll be a creek there. And we could just put a bridge or a culvert to connect the house and the swimming pool tennis court, which can be blocked off so people can't access it. And then everyone's happy because we get a wildlife corridor and the residents get access to their swimming pool and tennis court. I think that would be a brilliant solution without, directing the CEO in any way. So I think I'm going to support Councillor Piggott.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I was just thinking while I was listening to Councillor Jones speak that sometimes when I sit in this chamber I really want to poke myself in the eye with a sharp stick. Honestly, I'm not going to support this motion. Like Councillor Piggott, I've consoled myself to the fact that this is going to stay community land. But what I want to make very clear, and particularly to Councillor Henschke, is this. Have a look at this have a look at this. Have a look at this, the drain. You want to open it to community land, what you're doing is you're taking the fences off on either side, which means that anybody can go wandering around through your backyard. They can wander through your right of way, and they can actually wander while your children are going from your veranda to your swimming pool on the other side of the right of way. And I don't think that's right. I so do not think that's right. So yes, this can stay community land till the end of time. It should not become public land. It's a drain. It hasn't been community land for 40 years. And 40 years ago, our current mayor rode her bike through drains. That's fine. An open creek. Before it was a drain, did they have concrete in those days? No, okay. I think galloping with haste to making this an alleyway that people can walk in behind people's houses where there is a right-of-way, and those people could sue us. Because when they got a right-of-way, it was a right-of-way over a drain, not a piece of community, well, obviously a piece of community land, or maybe it wasn't in those days, we don't know. But I won't be supporting this motion. Keep it as community land, keep it like it is for the next 40 years. In 2050, this council can look at it again. If I could make it so, I would right now.
I don't see anyone on my screen who wishes to speak, so Councillor Davey, I'm back to you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hughes, you just...
Sorry, I will just quickly crack in. I won't support this for all the reasons Councillor Piggott and Councillor Lemon have already mentioned this evening. What I will do is just read you something from our website about what is community land. Community land is generally defined as land intended for public access and use. That's what it is. This land isn't intended for public access and use. This land is intended as a drainage reserve to convey stormwater from our major creeks through to the ocean. That's what it is. And I'm happy to explore other options, but I think to close this off, well, to open this up and close off essentially what is perhaps a historical administrative error that we're even in this position would be unfortunate for some of my local residents. So I hope that you will, perhaps we can see what Councillor Piggott can come to the table with.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. All I'll say in closing this very long debate tonight is have a heart, okay? Have a heart in this very emotional subject. Okay, it's going to be community land, that's fine, but just think about the lady in number 4. What would you do if you were living in number 4? What would you do, or what would you want if you lived on that street? It's very easy to sit back and be cold and just say things like, oh, the survey says this and the law says that. Come on, we're people. We are a community. We are all in this together. Let's come up with a compromise that I suppose wins both. Community land, fine, but let's vote this down, go with what Councillor Piggott suggested, and come up with a solution that wins both. It's still nice for the street. We're not going to war with our residents. They're not going to loathe us for the rest of the time. They're not going to hate us come election time. It'll be community land, that's fine. It'll stay in our hands forever. But let's come up with a solution that doesn't destroy these people. Have a heart.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. No guess that I won't be voting for this motion as it stands. I do agree with what a lot of councillors have said already. I'm severely concerned about the reputational risk to the city of Burnside. I can just imagine this being front page with a photograph of that lady who was crying out there in the corridor with her green grass and her pool, and the fact that we're going to put 2 big fences and stop her kids from playing in their backyard. I can just see that looking absolutely and utterly terribly for us. And let alone all the other houses that possibly might do the run-on after this. So I will not support this motion at all. I'll leave it at that.
Right, is there anyone else wishes to speak? I've tried to close it off once. Now I'm going to go to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for your input and your support of the previous motion. I believe this is a sensible outcome, and I'm happy to that the administration negotiate this an outcome to this removal of encroachments. I'm pleased that people agree that we must keep this as community land. I really we're talking about 639 metres squared here. It's not just a little strip of land. But I'm certainly not averse to Councillor Jones' suggestion. Return the creek to the original and bridge the creek to ensure number 4 Spencer Street maintains their access. I think that's a brilliant suggestion. It happens all across Burnside, up through Burnside, Beaumont, Kensington Park. If that's doable and people think that that's a good solution, I'd be more than happy with that if that's a good solution. But it will be an open area, and But then people live with that all the way through up past Harris Creek, Lockwood Road. There's a whole lot of properties that are open to the creek and not necessarily fenced off. And there's no security issues, there don't seem to be any problems. So if that's a good solution and you want to vote this down and we make an alternate solution, I'm very happy. I just want a solution to it that, as people have said, works for our environment, our reputation, our good governance, and if we can help our residents who are affected, well and good. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Excuse me, those against? The motion is lost. Now, I'm going to suggest that we actually have a break. That will give Councillor Piggott a little time to prepare what he wants as an alternative. And I know that will mean you won't get much of a break, but
No,
I think that's a sensible way to deal with it right now, that I think everyone needs a break. So unless anyone objects to it, you'll move. So Councillor Hughes will second it. I can see she'd love to have a break. So we'll have a 10-minute break now. Those in favour, having a break? Okay. And then we can come back and return to Councillor Pickett's alternative motion.
9 o'clock, Jesus.
Would you just leave it like it's been like for the last 40 years? We don't have to have another motion on the thing, we're just going to leave it like.
Well, I think we do need another motion. It's advertised in the room to have another motion, so I think it is worth it.
Let's just leave it and then let's rescind it.
Technically.
Oh, not rescind it. No, because now there's no motion. No, there's now no motion on the table.
No,
There is now nothing on the table.
yeah, so you just leave it. You can just leave it.
Yeah, I don't want to,
Why don't you leave it?
because I think we need to keep the process going. We need to have someone, we need them to go away, we need to come back and say it's a good idea not to open.
everybody, can we resume our meeting, please? It's 9:13, so we have sufficient people seated, so we will start. Councillor Piggott, it's yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll read out the motion that Council retains the community land classification of portions of McKenna Street Reserve and Yeronga Avenue Drainage Reserve, Kensington Park. 2, it advises the owners of 2 and 4 Spencer Street, 55 and 57 Yeronga Avenue, Kensington Park accordingly. 3, commence discussions with the residents with respect to the encroachments that impede community thoroughfare. 4, be provided with a report detailing future options for this land by the end of July 2022. And 5, contacts the respondents of the community consultation and advise them of the outcome of the Council's determination. I understand it is. Yeah, look at those nodding heads. Clearly it is. And good answer, well played, thank you. And what this does, we've had the debates in regard to whether it should be community land. It reinforces the fact that we've made the decision that it will be community land. Then what it does is actually goes out and gathers information and brings us back a report as to what is the best way to go forward, given that has been resolved. And the reason for July 2022 is so this council can actually look at those options and potentially resolve this issue ahead of the caretake period. So, I feel that's a good position to go in regard to this, to get the right answer eventually. And I seek your support.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak or, okay? Anyone, Councillor Hughes, you're next.
I'm happy to support it. I was perhaps going to move a variation, or perhaps if you would humour me by adding in number 4, which considers why it's a ridiculous idea to open it as an open drain channel. But I'm sure the report will come back with that. It's just a little bit of humour that you hit after 9 o'clock when you've had the Tim Tams. I think this will provide us with another opportunity to review this. I am conscious of the fact that we have residents who have had this issue hanging over their shoulders for potentially 2 years. So I think, maybe we'll get to a point where we're not opening it up and fencing, but we might be able to come to a mutual...
Except that we're making it clear we're not selling the land. Well, potentially not selling the land.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right, so you're okay. Councillor Davey, you're next.
I have a question. In relation to 3, commence discussions with the residents with respect to the encroachments that impede community thoroughfare. Are we asking for their input as to how they can resolve them, or what? What does this mean?
Through Madam Mayor. I'm going to answer this question with a question first for Councillor Piggott. Do we need the words impede community thoroughfare in there?
I was worried about
that. Could imply that we're looking to open this thing up. So just if you're happy to stop at encroachments, I think that clarifies that.
Take it back 2 more words, please.
Sorry, Councillor Davey, could you please restate your question?
So what do we want the discussions to produce? Are there solutions to these encroachments possible?
To my mind, the way I'm interpreting that is that it enables me to talk to the residents to understand the nuances of their particular circumstance, how material their encroachments are, how easily those are removed, whether they've turned their minds to what a solution could look like. It's really just about gaining more data to inform point 4. But is that your intent, Councillor Piggott?
I don't have anyone on the screen. Does anyone wish to add to this debate, or are you happy for me to go back to Councillor Piggott to put the motion? I'm getting a couple of nods, and I'm happy to go back to you. Oh, Councillor Davey, you still have another question?
I'm happy to speak.
You want to speak? Okay.
Yes, I thank Councillor Piggott for his motion. People are getting a bit teasy. I mean, we were only talking about opening up the creek if it was, it was another solution that was offered tonight. Off the cuff, it was totally uninformed, but there are lots of those situations that already exist in Burnside. All options are on the table now, as long as we're not selling the land, and we've actually committed to retaining the community land classification. I'm happy that we work with the residents and develop solutions, and as soon as possible, because that's a valid point that we need to resolve these quickly. So thank you.
Councillor Piggott. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against?
Division.
Wait a minute. Yes, it is carried. Division has been called, so please stand if you were in support of this motion. So that's Councillor Henschke, Hughes, Davey, Piggott, Carbone, Dawes and Jones. Against, Councillors Cornish, Lemon and Turnbull. We go back to report. We actually start the agenda. So we go to 11.1, Era Water draft, to find out who wishes to withdraw. Don't worry, I'm there. So,
I do.
Councillor Piggott. How did I guess? I had your name written already by it. Staff resourcing, 11.2. Sorry, what have I done wrong?
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's why we're just finding out who wishes to withdraw for debate. Okay. So anyone wish to withdraw? You do, Councillor Davey. Sorry.
We're using the button or the arm?
Button. Oh, sorry, you had yours on first, so that's Councillor Piggott.
Yeah. No, thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Third quarter budget update. No one. Then can I have a motion, please? Councillor Hughes, seconded Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Finance end of the month. Right, I need a mover then. Councillor Dawes, seconded Councillor Davey. I think I just saw you at the corner of my eye. And those in favour? Just put those in favour again, please. Sorry, I just didn't register. This is 14. This is 11.4. Okay. Right. Although, thank you. That's carried. We've dealt with the Lockwood Road, so we now move to the Coach Road. Councillor Piggott.
Three-peat.
Yeah. And minutes, Special Risk and Audit Committee. No, Councillor Lemon, you've got that one?
I moved it. I'm moving it.
Yes. Oh, sorry, you're moving it. Thank you. All right. Seconder, Councillor Dawes. All those in favour? Carried. This report. Somebody moved. Councillor Henschke, thank you. Councillor Turnbull, seconded.
I had my...
Sorry, Councillor Hughes. You did second it, Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Carried. Chief Executive's report. Are you wishing to withdraw that for discussion?
Did you? I'm ready.
First of all, yes. First of all, there is somebody who wishes to withdraw it.
Thank you.
Correct. If we get to it tonight. Right, so we now go back to Councillor Piggott. 11.1, page 7.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm seeking to move the officer's recommendation. And in doing that, it's and there's not much to say to it particularly. If obviously we've looked at it. This is slightly a product of the work done between Era Water representatives at the Audit and Risk Committee of Burnside. And what it does, this budget, is it does line up the three councils in terms of what they are willing to put in as an equity investment. It introduces the security charge, as has been detailed in this report. It allows Era Water to go about its business without actually being right on the doorstep of exceeding its debt limit, and is able to, I think, perhaps take advantage perhaps of Era Water's recent wins in regard to the business to really work out what's best to do next. Capital expenditure is quite limited under the budget, And there's a reason for that, is that if the councils are to put more money into Era Water, councils need to know what that's going to be spent on. And I think there's work being done now by Era Water to come back to the councils in regard to the future of the organisation, which will involve capital expenditure. So that's what that says. The only thing I skipped over, I guess, is that at least last year anyway, the practice of paying for the council's water in July, prepayment of it, was done by all three councils, and the intention is again to do that. So, you know, Era Water continues to be an issue that we need to stay close with, but I do think actually the management of it has taken a great step forward in the last 6 months with the chair and also the general manager and the way the board's operating. But it does still need a bit of care, I think, in order to see what the future holds. And this budget allows them to do that this year with our support and that of the other two councils. So I seek your support.
CEO wishes to speak.
Just through Madam Mayor, it was remiss of me not to note my interest in this matter, given that I sit on the board. Just need that recorded in the minutes.
Thank you for recording that, Mr. CEO. I seek a seconder. Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Councillor Turnbull.
I have a question, if I may, Madam Mayor. If this payment is not approved, what are the implications for the City of Burnside and for Era Water?
Through Madam Mayor, particularly if the $200,000 recapitalisation isn't approved, that would result in Era Water breaching its debt cap, and the best way I can describe that is essentially you'll be forcing Era Water to trade essentially in insolvency. And if that were to become close to that, you would find that all people on the board would probably very quickly not be on the board, because no self-respecting company director will put themselves in that position. This investment is required to give Era Water an opportunity to prove that it can stand on its own 2 feet. If this investment is not made, that will be a declaration from this council that they no longer see Era Water as viable and would have to make alternate arrangements in terms of getting out of Era Water.
May I ask a follow-up question, please?
Yes, you may.
Does Era Water have any buyers for this scheme at this stage?
Through Madam Mayor, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. And it's fair to say that at this point in Era Water's progression, that's been taken off the table, and we really are focused on looking at making Era Water a sustainable enterprise. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask any questions? Otherwise, I shall go back to Councillor Piggott. No, Councillor Dawes, you have a question.
Yeah, I don't know what to say really. I would never be putting money into Era Water, and I'm worried that we're putting more ratepayer money in. I've listened to what the Audit Committee has said. To me, this is the last chance. That's how I've interpreted it. It's the last chance. The councils will be giving $200,000 into the scheme, of which $300,000 of that will go towards this business case, which was the main point, I think, of the Special Audit Committee meeting, that they want to see action here. I think when we had the workshop with Era Water, I remember my key point was your Achilles heel has to be you can't sell the stuff. And until they get that level up to 352 megalitres, which in their papers says break even, then we are currently in trouble. So in 12 months' time, obviously with a different council, we've got to make a very hard decision. So I do agree with the statement. We have got a good chairperson and a good general manager. I take the comments there of the CEO. I think they are spot on. But councillors, you know, like we're talking about ratepayers' money. It's not our own money. We wouldn't be investing in this. We must get to the stage of we are happy with what they're doing and they're going to sell it. We're not going to keep putting money into it for year upon year. So I will support the motion, but on that understanding.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, look, I'll speak. We had a full and frank discussion at the Audit Committee. We had our two new independent members who both attended for the first time. They were really asking good questions, drilling into it. The chair of the Audit Committee is very good. I was significantly heartened by the new General Manager and Chairman. They've really got to the bottom of the issues and, you know, on a full cost replacement, everyone is in agreement. It's not sustainable forever, but it potentially can last for 70 years. And they've started doing some good financial modelling, saying, do we press on and try and get this 350 odd megalitres? Do we just leave it as it is and say it's just going to supply us and it offers an environmental benefit? Or they've also looked at an option of do we mothball it? And they're doing modelling on that, and I think the modelling is actually showing that you're better to continue with the environmental benefits. I take Councillor Dawes' point, but the problem is this subsidiary has borrowed $15 million, and if we close it down, we have to pay that. You know, our share is $5 million, so we would either have to take on that debt and pay interest on it, or we'd have to repay it. I don't think we've got $5 million in the bank to repay it, so we would just assume $5 million of debt. So we need to have that in the back of our minds that we can't just walk away. Well, we can, but there's a cost. You know, it's not cost-free. We can't just say this is easy to just walk away from. And it does, you know, it does have some benefits from an environmental perspective. What I asked the Era Water Board to do is to go away and quantify them so that we can say to ratepayers, this, you know, we are paying this much extra a year above what we would pay to SA Water, but we think this is a good idea because. And if that was $100,000 a year, or if it was $1 million a year, but we need to know that number, because if it's $100,000 a year, you'd say, well, yeah, you know, we spend money on environmental things. We have libraries, we have a cinema, we have a swimming pool that are not necessarily profitable, but we do them because they have community benefit. So I do encourage you to support this motion.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jones, for all of that. My question is, has the board and the audit committee, risk committee, modelled the risk that we have to have more equity investments over time, or is this going to be the only equity investment we could ever imagine in the short term? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the board has done that modelling, and I think it is worth pointing out that even with the $600,000 capital injection, i.e. $200,000 from each council, by 11 months into the coming financial year, we will be reapproaching the debt cap. The initial request that came from the board was for a figure of $1 million recapitalisation. Now, in fairness to the audit committee and the discussions we had, it was felt that Era Water needed to better quantify particularly what capital investments were required. So the step that's been recommended to you this evening is that essentially Era Water would be given some capacity to develop and understand what those targeted capital inputs are required to produce long-term sustainability. So what is being asked of you this evening isn't going to solve all of the issues. It's going to buy time for Era Water to make the correct investigations to understand what needs to happen to ensure long-term sustainability. Does that clarify? Thank you.
Councillor Hughes?
I'm happy to support the motion. If you asked me 2 years ago whether we'd ever hear Councillor Jones support a motion about Era Water, I would have fallen off my chair with laughter. Where did the real Harvey Jones go this evening? Did someone abduct him during the break? Because I'm actually floored the fact that you're supporting the motion, but I do think it's good. Again, reading the papers, it is really promising to see some of these decisions and the processes that are going through, and I think you can see a change in thinking and direction. It's not all, unicorns and rainbows. It's actually trying to paint an honest, clear picture of where we're at and give us time to actually come around to what we should do. So I'm happy to support the motion as it stands.
Councillor Piggott, you ready to sum up? Yep.
I've got to reprimand Councillor Hughes, actually. I think this is the real Councillor Jones. And I sat here thinking, shit, that's what I should have said when I was actually speaking to the motion. The explanation of where this thing is and the issues around it and why we're doing this was exactly as Councillor Jones explained. It's a holding pattern. There will be more to come. And there is no magic walk away. It'll be all okay. We won't have to talk about this anymore because we are 1/3 owners of $15 million worth of debt in Era Water. So we need to make this work, or make it work to the sufficient that somebody else might like to buy it, and that will take us some time. So that's where we're at, and I do appreciate Councillor Jones, because where he's been clearly on it has been clear, hence the point. But I did go to the audit committee, and it was a relatively difficult night, but it did actually pull out the issues and get a really good outcome. So, and this is the result of it. So, thank you.
I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Next is the staff resourcing report, also Councillor Piggott.
Now, I have an alternative motion here somewhere. Do I? Yes. Thank you. And perhaps I could, it's an alternative motion. Basically what it asks for is that Council does increase the current FTE cap by 3.66 as recommended in the report, including all those 6 listed. They are unchanged. 2, that the cost impact from the additional employee resources in 2022-23 be funded out of savings to be found within the Labor budget. And 3, that administration undertake a review of the ongoing cost pressure from the additional employee resources for future years, with a view to finding offsetting savings, and the result of this review be presented to Council as part of the 2023-24 annual business plan and budget process. Now, this is slightly this came as a result of the 6 people that we had described in the report, and the fact that Council feels, or administration feels, that they are all important to the ongoing success of the organisation. And when I read all 6 of them, I couldn't actually find fault with any of that argument. It was also put in the report the fact that it would cost $260,000 extra this year, and then ongoing nearly $500,000 to accommodate them. It raised a couple of issues for me. One is I'm only a recent understanding of the whole Labor thing within Council, and the reporting that FTEs are obviously only permanent staff, and there's actually an element of staff that come in under different ways, casuals, contractor staff, and which adds up to another $1.3 million a year. In all, we spend around $19 million on staff. What this motion does is tweak a little in what was suggested. But what it does is ask that actually that, yes, it's okay to put more FTEs in, but as a council, we don't want to see actually the payroll figures in total go up as a result across $19 million worth of staff that's in the budget. We'd like to see that all sorted out within that. We're okay with those 6 and the nominal figure of 3.66 more of FTEs, but in this year that extra money needs to come out of the cost of labour generally, and we would like to see ahead of next year's budget where that's been resolved ongoing. Because as a council, I think we're duty bound that we should keep, it's obviously a major cost, a major element of what we do, and we should not be seen to, in the middle of a budget consultation period anyway, I think, just say, look, we're going to up this straight off the bat. I think we do need to make sure that it does balance itself out. It does mean that work needs to be done within the organisation to find those savings, which, given the report we were given, I think I have confidence that can happen. So I seek your support for the motion.
I seek a seconder. I'm looking for a name here. Councillor Lemon. See? Oh, you don't want to second?
Reserve your right.
She didn't like it at all.
Okay, so seconding is
second.
Councillor Hughes.
And I'll reserve my right.
Next is Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, a question for administration. I was here last Thursday with the budget presentation, and you made the statement that I thought it was 164.82 or something, and yet the meeting following, we're now saying we're going to increase the staff. How do you explain that after we've made that announcement to the residents?
Yeah, certainly. Your through, Madam Mayor, the first thing to acknowledge is that in an ideal world we would have had the conversation much sooner, but events transpired that we weren't in a position to present the comprehensive case to council in an earlier time frame. So acknowledging that, the way I can sleep at night presenting to the council now is that effectively we acknowledge that we're looking to introduce these additional staff through no additional cost to council. I'm not asking the ratepayers for any more funds to fund these positions. We had a considerable conversation with the exec team about what we felt was the appropriate way to manage this. We didn't feel that it was appropriate to ask council for any further funding because we genuinely believe that 3.5 is the right figure, subject to community feedback. And therefore, as an exec team, we were prepared to take on the challenge to fund this from our existing resource in the knowledge that we feel strongly that these positions are needed within the organisation to deliver for our community.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I'm going to rabbit on now about my ideology because I want to put this in context. I'm not sure about Councillor Piggott's motion because it doesn't accord with what I believe in. So this is the ideology. I've been a councillor since 2010. That's almost some 12 years. When I first started in 2010, Burnside Council had 162 staff. Burnside Council now has got 164 staff. It does a lot more things, huge more things, than what it did. So I feel that the council has been very meagre with its staffing resources, but I also feel that, and I just need to go like that to those people that are sitting in this room on a Tuesday night at 9:43. There are a lot of people in this council that are working 70 and 80-hour weeks. I could actually point them out from here. So I have long felt, probably for the last 5 years or so, that we are an understaffed council. So that's my first point that I would make. My second point that I would make is, in current conditions, we have almost full employment in Australia. There is a screech from businesses for skilled workers, and local government, and this council in particular, wants the best people for the job. Now, in Australia, we haven't had wage growth for over 20 years. And the best person for the job is someone you pay properly, because they go into a contract with you. I'm going to give you my time and my skills and my loyalty and my dedication, and you're going to pay me the most I can possibly get from you. And if you don't, I will go somewhere else. But they don't. This council hasn't gone somewhere else. Most of the people have stayed here and given us their loyalty and their dedication and worked their bums off for us. So to say you're not going to cost the ratepayers anything is a fine thing to say. But how much longer can we in fact have a staff that sits at around 165, not recruit, not train, and how much do we still have to have new programs? The extra report, the next report, somebody that's going to do the understory planting, somebody that's going to look at the audit committee, somebody that's going to do any number of other things. I think we're being unfair. I think asking this is unfair. I think if we really want to tackle this issue, we probably need to have a workshop about staffing. What is the ideal world, and what can our ratepayers bear, and what can our annual budget bear? Sticking something on the bottom of this isn't the way to go, in my opinion. What we need to do is we need to look at this deeply, and we need to tell each other some truths.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. The next person is Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with every word that Councillor Lemon has said. My concern is for what we are asking of our staff. We already ask a huge amount. We have high expectations as council. We know our community does, and we provide incredible services to our community. I'd like to know where the savings could be found in the Labor budget for this in the 22-23 financial year. What areas would savings have to be made to fund this, please?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the primary area will be within our casual and staff backfilling area. Now, as I sit here this evening, I don't know exactly what that looks like. It will entail my team going away and understanding what efficiencies can be gained. But as per the motion before you, it's dictating where I go to look for those savings.
Subsequent question?
Sorry, follow-up question. So what areas, is this right across the organisation?
Yep. So, through Madam Mayor, yes, it will be across the organisation, across my whole Labor budget. So I believe the impetus here is to focus on finding savings from within our existing Labor budget, not our total budget. I can't definitively break down the individual areas that will be impacted because I don't know at this point in time. But to take on Councillor Lemon's thoughts, referring to point 3, it might be that study comes back and says there's savings that can be had, but it could also come back and say you've achieved all the savings you could possibly achieve and the council does need to reinvest. So I have an open mind on point 3 that it may not necessarily dictate that there's an unending source of savings. But as it stands, that's where I'll be searching initially from the Labor budget.
No, because I've got 4 people who need to speak first and then I can come back. Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. Question for the CEO. We've just heard a lot about staffing, hours, workload, resources, no growth in FTEs, all that kind of stuff. You're the CEO. Your job is to advise us on what we need to do to make changes to improve the culture and work-life balance and all those things, right? Apart from this, are you generally happy with our FTEs, their workload, their hours, their salary, their work-life balance, the culture, all those things.
Don't know that it's immediately relevant to the motion that's here, but I will give the opportunity to the CEO to answer.
So, through Madam Mayor, I can't give you a full definitive answer because I haven't done the full in-depth study. But a couple of things I will say. I think at the City of Burnside, we do have an exceptional culture that we work very hard on cultivating every minute of every day. My team do work hard, and I think Councillor Lemon's articulated it well, that many in my team go above and beyond to deliver for the city. I have a feeling that, and not a feeling, it's more than a feeling, there are some areas of the organisation that we do need to invest in, and you're seeing some of those on the board this evening. But to balance all that, I still have a responsibility as your CEO to fiscally manage the organisation well and to look after the interests of our ratepayers. So it will always be a balancing exercise. The commitment that I would make, though, is if I ever get to the point where I find we are burning out staff, I won't stand by and let that happen. I will be coming back to council to have a conversation if I can't manage that within my own resource pool that you authorise me. So that's the commitment.
Very important statement. Thank you. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to add, I don't know if it might be a variation depending on if I can compress this into section 3 there. The intent is here that the administration undertake a review of the ongoing cost pressures, etc. Can this review incorporate the recommendations to from the South Australian Government, the advice to councils from the South Australian Productivity Commission in 2019, I think it was? There was advice to councils to work at how to do these things, find savings. One advice from the Commission was to explore resource sharing with adjacent councils and a number of other things, a number of other bits of advice. So my question then is, will this review consider the recommendations of the South Australian Productivity Commission report, the inquiry into local government costs and efficiency in 2019? If not, I will move an amendment that it does.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In my role as CEO, I'm always looking for opportunities, and in fact we have regular discussions with the ERA group of CEOs about ways in which we can deliver services more efficiently to our communities. I don't believe you need to add any words to this motion. I certainly take my responsibility quite seriously to always look at ways where we can do things more effectively and efficiently. I think a lot of the findings of that commission aren't the panacea to all of our challenges. They make very broad brush statements, but when you look at implementing them physically, it doesn't materialise into on-ground savings. So I'd really prefer to be given a more open charter to explore whatever avenues I think are necessary to deliver a result for council. Thank you.
No one on the screen now, so Councillor Day.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions, CEO, through you. One of the other issues that's current, and I know this has had a huge impact on the corporation, is the effect of COVID, and I know we've still got significant implications from that. How are we managing that in terms of, as well, I mean, this might be more appropriate to ask you in the CEO's report, but how are we managing that in terms of looking at cost savings as well in our employee resources?
I'm happy, Madam Mayor. I think in terms of how we chose to manage COVID as an organisation, It's achieved a number of things. It's resulted in an organisation that is terribly loyal because we looked after our team. Reflecting on what Councillor Lemon said a bit earlier, in the last 3 to 4 months, COVID has hit us hard as an organisation. We were very fortunate early on in the pandemic that because of our risk mitigation strategies, we weren't suffering many staff, downtime from staff as a result of COVID. We have had situations in the last couple of months where we have come very close to not being able to deliver services to our community, and the library is one of those areas in particular. But I am pleased to say that our staff all pitched in, even moved outside of their primary areas of responsibility to continue delivering. Now, you can do that in the short term, and we have achieved that in the short term. We will need to monitor the situation going forward to ensure we don't have a result where staff are burnt out from perhaps picking up too many tasks. I still feel that as an organisation, our risk management strategies have put us in a far superior position than most. But it's a fair comment to say we are experiencing impacts right now. I'd like to think we're perhaps slightly better than a couple of months ago. But it's an uncertain area. And but my commitment, as always, is that we will continue to deliver. And I guess that's where I do need some flexibility with my wages budget, that if I have got staff who are unable to attend work and there are critical services, I do need flexibility to pull in resources from external, whether it's external agencies as the need be. But again, it's a balancing effort, and I'll do my level best to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. Look, I think it's important to clarify the differences really from the recommendation to what I'm saying here. The report talks about wanting to up the FTE numbers. It talks about an additional $267,000 to come from somewhere in the budget. What this motion says, it should come from the Labor budget, not from the rest of the budget. There's $19.3 million, $9.4 million in there. $267,000 is less than 1.5% of that. And then the second thing it does, which was silent in the report, is what happens next year, because it actually, once you lock them in, and that's why, an FTE I think is a bit of a blunt instrument in actual fact, but what it does do is limit the amount of permanent staff, because they are going to cost you this year, next year and the year after. And so if this does need to be done, if it's seen as necessary, what this motion does is have the Chief Executive or Administration look to where that $500,000 comes from, rather than just add it onto the top. And whether it's reasonable to add it onto the top, I think, there's no question, and there was no implication that the staff here work well. I don't know how long they work, hopefully not as long as Councillor Lemon is indicating, but I don't know how long. I think it's not a reflection of, I think we're in good shape. But an organisation like this does need to have good vigilance over major budget items, salaries, $19.3 million. And all this is doing is saying, yes, increase the FTE. In actual fact, I don't care if it goes to 200 FTEs if I know where it's being paid for, and it's still about $19.3 million. So from that point of view, the key is not so much the FTE number, it is the total budget that then feeds into what rates our residents need to pay. And so that's all this is doing. The tweak is to just keep focus on that Labor budget, in particular in this situation, because it is actually half of if you take depreciation, which is pretty hard to do much about, Labor's 19 and I think materials is 18 or something like that, and similar. They're the two big lines that our administration work with every day. So that's what this is trying to do. I don't think we should get emotional arguments put in. This is actually just picking up what was given to us, administration, and saying, let's focus it on payroll and see what you can do. And I don't think there's any question if things down the track, and if you listen to Councillor Lemon, he should have already done it, perhaps. Come here to say, look, we need more money to get people out of the trouble they're in. I don't hear that happening, but I don't doubt, and I certainly would welcome if that was the case, that happening at future council meetings. But this is an important thing, I think, that a council, that a board actually does in regard to a very major line of costs in the council's budget. We should vote it up. Thanks.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Take the opportunity to say two things. One is that I attended on behalf of you all the staff get-together that had been cancelled from the end of last year, and I sincerely thanked every single staff member at that event for the incredible work that they have done over the last, not just last year, for the last 3 years of what they've had to cope with, the way that they've been ingenious in terms of coming up with new ways of doing things, as well as supporting each other. And what I experienced in my drop-in and leave was an amazing camaraderie that was to be totally admired. And on top of that, I just want to say also that we are losing one of our people, and I know she's online tonight in case she had to answer any questions about this particular report, but I would really like to recognise the work of Farley Taylor. This week is her last week at council, and she has made an incredible contribution to this council through community connections, the development of work on heritage and reconciliation and diversity have been really outstanding, and I would like our council to give her a particular round of applause to thank her and wish her well in her future career. And hopefully she's still awake and online and heard that. All right, so now we move on to Coach Road. So David soon should be able to go home. So 11.6, that's Councillor Pickett again. We did third quarter, we did finance, yes. That's right.
Yep.
Coach Road.
Coach Road. This is a slightly different, although it does pick up the bones of all the work, which is good, and I thank administration for doing that. What I'm seeking to do, the council receives and notes the report that council progresses the installation of 3 driveway linked traffic control devices on Coach Road during 22-23 financial year, subject to a feasibility study, assessment, community consultation, allocation of an additional $200,000 in the 22-23 annual capital budget in the business plan. During the 22-23 financial year progresses the following additional traffic calming initiatives: the installation of an additional LED speed detecting variable sign on Coach Road just east of Knox Terrace, and the installation of additional static reminder signs. 4, contact SAPOL to specifically request that they include Coach Road Sky as a location for regular monitoring and placement of speed detection devices. 5, during the 22-23 financial year, investigates and consults on the potential upgrade of the flood security lighting at the Sky Lookout, the implementation of public street lighting on Coach Road Sky, and receives a report outlining the results and recommendations to Council for consideration ahead of the 23-24 annual business plan and budget process. And speaking to that, what the report tells us in regard to Coach Road, which is quite a complicated road, takes a few sort of, it's very steep, takes a few pretty severe turns. Residents all up and down it. If you do the trip, you end up at a relatively shabby lookout that has a relatively unshabby view of the coast and the city. And what has clearly been happening, and it's interesting, we often hear, and I think we probably did tonight, there's debate of whether the speeds in our traffic assessments are sufficient to do anything about. In this one, they're not in the 50s, they're in the 60s. And we've also got a number of accidents that have happened, one which was quite bad, where the car rolled probably 30 metres off the roadway onto the veranda of a resident. So it's fairly clear cut that something needs to happen, and the report shows that it's fairly clear cut what's available to us to do. and that's really around the driveway link traffic control devices that would appear to be the best option in regard to trying to sort this out, in addition to perhaps putting in an additional LED speed detecting BMS on Coach Road as well. The only thing with the report a difference to this report is it's seeking actually to get on and sort it out. I do understand why the report put in the driveway link, which is already in the budget one, but really I feel what should happen is the work should be done to sort that out and sort it out now. And I do realise there's another 200,000 that I'm seeking to go onto the capital budget mid consultation. It's the subject of the evening. This is capital rather than operating, which is slightly a lesser offence. But I guess I do feel that it's a problem here and now with a clear solution, and it's really probably only the budgeting process. If we were talking about this in January, it probably wouldn't be controversial, and perhaps it isn't tonight. So that's what it's seeking to do. Number 4, you might note, is another crack at quite how we might contact CPOL to get some action in a different set of wording. And number 5 really is around the street lighting, which is reasonable, I think, to do the work on it in advance of making a decision whether you do something on it the following year. So I seek your support on the motion.
I seek a seconder. Councillor Turnbull, do you wish to speak?
I agree with Coach Road. It's not a nice road. Any changes put in place will help. Usually I don't talk anecdotal stuff, but driving up there relieves my awfulest, worst nightmare drive ever. My learner's son, with his first learner L plates, persuaded me to be his mentor. And he went tearing up there like the bat out of hell. And I still have nightmares about it. And I hate going up there. I hate revisiting, even though I'm driving. So I will vote for anything that will support the safety of that awful road. So that's it for me.
Anyone else wish to speak? Right then. Sorry, Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got some concerns. I understand entirely the intent of the motion, and but I just think it's a bit of overkill in the initial stages. I have to say, in the example of driveway link examples on page 82 at 34.8, I absolutely loathe the Cuthero Terrace driveway link because I actually think they're unsafe. I mean, I know there's probably a whole lot of scientific data that talks about them, but if we're putting them on windy roads with not very good lighting, and where people are going for parking, because that's the reason people go up to Coach Road and that whole lookout. It's a lover's lane. Well, it is. I mean, everybody knows about it from, our teenage years. But yeah, I just think this is a bit of overkill. I'd really rather see a whole lot before we go down the track of actually installing physical treatments. I'd rather see that we do take all the other initiatives and improve the lighting and those sort of aspects rather than putting in these treatments. So I won't support this motion.
Councillor Hughes?
I was just going to ask the administration what the potential impact would be on the budget. Obviously, we've already given out to the community, but would this have an impact potentially?
Through Madam Mayor, the addition of $200,000 to our borrowing will not have a material impact on our budget and can be accommodated.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you. If I'm not mistaken, when I was driving up Coach Road just on the weekend, because I went on a big bush hike up through Horsnell's Gully, driving back on Coach Road was just amazing. Wow, you could really fly if you wanted to. But I just didn't notice any significant trees along that whole route, which made it very easy to go fast. So I just am with Councillor Davey about innovative traffic methods, traffic control methods. And one of those, and I spoke to a traffic engineer well known in Adelaide, is when you're driving to have vegetation in your peripheral vision, and that gives you that slows you down. So having stuff around the sides on your drive is a deterrent to speeding. Of course, it will ruin the view of Adelaide, but there aren't any trees along there, and I just feel it's just very sparse and very, was it Highway 61 or whatever in Arizona-style road. Anyway, I think this is, it's very important, traffic, but I'm just feeling tonight, I just don't know enough to commit to quite a substantial amount of money here. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes?
I'll speak very briefly, at the risk of sounding like we should just spend. I think if this had come with a petition in, say, November, the residents come, present us with an issue, we would manage the budget accordingly to try and actually go out and solve the problem for our residents. I think what we have seen is a report that's been written by our staff who manage our roads, manage our traffic, and I think we actually need to take into account that the staff have experience in managing our roads and our traffic. So I'm happy to support the engineering solutions that they've come up with, because I actually have faith that we have our staff who have looked into this appropriately, and the report does set out all of the options. And I guess I think if we've got a problem and we've had people come to us, we should try and solve that. And I think Councillor Turnbull's right. You know, we've got the opportunity here this evening. Appreciate that. We always are adding a few extra things, but I guess that's the nature of council, is that things come to us outside of the budget cycle, and we actually, you know, we're here to represent our residents and help them get an outcome. I am not a regular in this area, but have a husband who has responded to CFS incidents in this area with a vehicle, you know, essentially on a roof of a house. People can pick up great speed. I'm not sure whether having extra trees and vegetation may just mean that people run into trees, but I think we do have a problem. We've got a report. I think all we're doing is moving things forward that had been suggested by staff by supporting Councillor Piggott's motion, so I'm happy to do that.
Councillor Lemon?
Thank you. Yes, we need to remember that we're making decisions for residents. We're not actually making decisions because the road scared us, because we were taking our kids as learner drivers, or there aren't any trees on the side of the road, or I just don't like driveway lengths. This is a recommendation that's been made to us with staff, and as much as I hate the fact that the $200,000, it's $240,000 tonight that we've spent by resolution of this council that we hadn't actually put in our budget, but I do say it is slightly forgivable because it's capital cost rather than operational cost, and in that sense can be hidden better, I presume, and dealt with better. But I think that road has been a problem for a long time, and I think all we're doing is accelerating fixing it. So in that sense I will support this, but I'll support this because this is the right thing to do for our residents. It isn't because I like traffic calming devices, or I don't like that one, or I'm waiting for another report from some other engineer. We've sat here long enough to have got all the reports from all the engineers for all the traffic calming devices, for all the roads that we've got problems with. Let our staff do it. None of us in this room are experts. And it's not about what's our preference. I mean, there's a driveway link on Prescott Terrace that always makes me go faster. So there should just be a special thing for me when I'm on the road. I tell you, I don't do Coach Road much, ever. And this is a good thing if you can go really fast. So stick in those traffic calming measures and I might take a Sunday drive.
Lovers Lane
Councillor Davey, I'm just aware of the time. I'm going to have to need seeking extension.
Just a
if we
quick
don't-
question again in relation to SAPOL involvement. Have there been any speed monitoring operations and cameras on this road? And if not, what's their approach to this?
Through the Mayor, we're not aware of any recent SAPOL speed checks on this location. With respect to their position, our recommendation is to consult with them following this discussion. So we can certainly report back in the future report.
Councillor Cornish.
Look, happy to support the motion. I do have a minor concern about the driveway link given Heatherbank Terrace. It's had that had a steep incline too. There were concerns around getting firefighting equipment up there and people getting out in a quickly and timely manner. You've got consultation in there. I just want to, make sure that we're covering our bases in terms of the design of it, so it might not be as high impact as the Heatherbank was, and whether or not there's the ability that you've got those bend over things that trucks can just roll over the top of if they need to in an emergency. So I'm just flagging some issues with the actual location with the driveway link that I think there are. Personal opinion on particular traffic calming measures, I get that, but I think we need to be sensitive of certain areas where we need to be. So I just sort of flag that now.
You beat me to it, Councillor Cornish. No. I living in an area like Mount Osmond is very similar. And those calming devices, these driveway linkies, were rejected by our community because of the fear of CFS accessibility and escape from the mount in the case of bushfire. And that consultation was really important with all of the residents so that they had a say in that. So my question is really that relates specifically to that, the importance of how that consultation is. It actually involves the whole community, because a bit like Mount Osmond, there's only one way down. And if that's the only way out in the case of a fire, you have to be able to get people out quite quickly, and you have to get vehicles in quite quickly, whether it be to an accident, a vehicular accident or a fire. So that consultation is my only concern about this. The other thing I want to say is that, like Mount Osmond, a lot of this area has no footpaths, no gutters, and I think any expenditure in an area like that where they pay rates is a good one.
Oh, thank you. Then a question following on with your comments there, Madam Mayor. The question is, number 2 says subject to community consultation. Yep. Will we be consulting with the CFS then for this road?
Good question. The answer is nodded yes. Good. The answer is yes.
Thank you.
Okay. I haven't any other names here, so I'm going to go back to Councillor Pitt.
Yeah, thank you. Look, it's a clear problem. The solution subject to community consultation, that's very true, but the administration's leant in and provided a clear solution to it. The question is really how quickly we do it. And so I think this is worthy of support, albeit it's outside the business plan process. But I do seek your support to try and sort this issue out, which is a clear issue.
I put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
It'd be nice to do 11.7, Madam Mayor,
Okay,
just to allow the team to progress that matter.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move in terms of the recommendation from Council, but with an amendment at 1.2, delete commencement date of 1st of June and replace it with a period of community engagement and consultation be undertaken before the lease is finalised. Do you want me to read out the whole motion? The reason I'm moving this is that telecommunications facilities are hugely controversial in the community. This is certainly, it has been there for some time, but I think if our community, in the interests of openness and transparency, if our community haven't been told that we're extending the lease for another 20 years and the conditions of that, but that they have been told, and that they're not even consulted about it, I think in light of our community engagement policy, I think this is entirely appropriate. And I'm not sure why it hasn't been recommended and undertaken. I'm happy if there's a good reason, but the wording is community consultation, subject to any conditions, and community consultation, a period of community engagement and consultation.
Can I just ask a question? I was of the understanding that a telecommunications tower, they can basically do whatever they like. And it doesn't require consultation. Correct me if I'm wrong.
A period of community consultation and engagement be undertaken before the lease is finalised.
Through Madam Mayor, this is slightly different because it's on private land.
It's on our land. And it is so just in speaking to that, our community engagement policy says that it's recognised that high quality community engagement is critical to the successful development of sustainable policies and decisions by council. This policy...
You don't need to read it all out, just give us the piece,
so I'm
citing,
yes.
Okay.
I think in sympathy with and commitment to our community engagement policy, and this should be undertaken for our community. And that's what I'm so moving in terms of... I mean, it's a great proposal, but I don't think we can just impose this without informing and engaging with our community. So hopefully someone will second it and support it. Thank you.
I seek a seconder. No seconder to the motion, as it... Oh, sorry, Councillor, you are there. So Councillor Henschke has seconded. Do you wish to speak now?
Yeah, yes, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a good idea, Councillor Davies, because I hate to see this tower locking up prime real estate and opportunities for the precinct.
No, it's on our depot.
Yes, and the depot one day could become another use, but the tower could impact that, the flexibility there.
Thank you. Councillor Piggott.
I'd like to speak against this. I don't think it is appropriate. We've got an existing telecoms facility which is also, it was very important to the community. So, I mean, I don't know what happens if we tell them to pull it down. So I don't feel there's any particular gain in that. The terms could be questionable, I guess, but they seem pretty reasonable. We've done some work in regard to what it's worth, how long it should be and the like. We've got a clause in here that actually does say, I understand, or we're proposing, that if we do decide to do something dramatically different with the depot, they will, we take it back from them. So Councillor Henschke's concern is covered by the lease. I feel we should vote this down and put up the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Lemon.
I just want to ask what's in those tea bags in the kitchen that we had in the break. I really do. I'm looking at this and the lease starts on the 1st of June. That's like 7 working days away and we're going to go out to community consultation. Seriously? What are we putting in those tea bags? No, I won't be supporting it.
Councillor Cornett.
I won't be supporting it. It's operational land. It's currently there. The community use this facility. They need this facility. Walkers up Waterfall Gully would not be able to, or Chambers Gully would probably not have any reception on their telephones. It's an absolute and utter emergency issue if we pull this telecommunications tower down. So I am definitely not supporting this motion and closing this tower down in 7 days. No, thank you.
Councillor Jones.
I'd just like to say I've lived right next to it for 20 years. I've never even noticed it, so I'll be voting against the motion.
Councillor Carver.
I move that the motion be put.
Seconded by Councillor Hughes. Those in favour of the motion? Being put, sorry, thank you. Those against? Right, the motion is put now. Those, in favour? Those against?
Could I move the original motion, please?
No, it's too late.
Could I?
Sorry, the people were talking over me. It's too late. I've already moved on. It's only fair that we have a division. It's too late. I've declared it too late.
Could I move the original officer's recommendation, please, and I seek your support?
Seconded by Councillor Lemon. Does anyone wish to speak? Councillor Jones.
I move the motion be put.
Councillor Hughes has seconded it. Those in favour? Those against? That is carried. So I will put the motion. Those in favour of the motion? Against? Carried. That is finished.
Thank you very much. I move the officer's recommendation. The only reason I pulled this is I take you to page 112, which is the last bit before the tables. Paragraph 43. The multi-award winning The Shed at Conningham Street was a finalist in the Institute of Public Works Engineering of Australasia Awards at the International Public Works Conference on the 4th of May this year. Although not winning, the shed was shortlisted in the top 3 projects from across Australia and New Zealand for excellence in design and construction of a public works project. I said earlier on, I've been in this council for nearly 12 years. And do you know, that shed is my proudest piece of work. I fought for that. I fought for it and fought for it for about 6 years. It finally got built. And whenever I drive past it, I feel prouder of that than anything else. It's fantastic. I had to read that out for you. Now, the rest of the world thinks it too.
Yes. So well used and so well praised.
So I hope you support this motion.
Councillor Davey, you seconded?
I have a question. It's in relation to, well, someone else has had 5 minutes already. It's number 18, HR matters. There's some positions vacant, some that have already been filled, such as the Director Corporate.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to get an extension of time.
Okay, I'll move for an extension of time.
I have to do that at 25 past. We've gone to 27 past. So you're moving for an extension of time. Is there a seconder, Councillor Piggott? An extension of time for 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
10 minutes, is that agreed to everybody? Well, I need to put it to 10 minutes only. Please raise your hands if you support the 10 minutes. If you don't, please against. It is carried. So 10 more minutes, that's all. Okay, continue, Councillor Davey.
So my question was relating to which some of those positions have been being recruited for quite some months.
No. I thought Councillor Davey was seconding and asking a question.
Yeah, I'm happy to second, yes. The city clean parks jobs, civil maintenance, they have been, are we having trouble recruiting them, or are they on hold and being recruited from time to time? I'm just, we keep getting the lists given to us and I'm not sure where we're at with it. It'd be nice to have a really accurate list.
So, through Madam Mayor, this list is accurate. It's accurate at the point where this report was provided to you. Now, you've correctly noted that since the report has been provided, there's been some movement. Now, obviously, Director of Corporate, I've announced that one publicly. And I might just hand over to Mr. Cant and Mr. Cooper if they can just provide us with an update on any other items that have moved since publication. Through Madam Mayor.
Through the Mayor, the majority of those are being recruited and we're going through the process just now. I think the City Clean and Parks, we're just working on the paper for executive approval to proceed with that just now. That's just a recent resignation. So there's no issues that I'm aware of in this state just now. We're recruiting as appropriate.
Councillor Dawes?
I ask the motion be put.
Seconded by Councillor Cornish. Those in favour of the motion being put? Those against? Carried. I put the motion. Those in favour? Against? You didn't vote, Councillor Davey?
Oh, didn't I?
No. Well, you need to vote if you're sitting at the table. Thank you. Is that for or against? All right. Problem solved. All right, thank you. The meeting I am for your attendance. Thank you for your attendance. 10:29.